What it do is your boy, old boy, checking in from Old Boy's Corner, representing South Carolina, your favorite content conversationalist. Make sure you hit that like button on your way in, please, and thank you. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you hadn't already. Remember, just a small town country boy with big city dreams. This is your boy, old boy. The content is Uvalde school officer charged in mass shooting trial slash documentary. I'm not sure if you heard of this case. There's been officers fired. There's some facing criminal charges, and the one that's on trial right now is Adrian Gonzalez. I want to say his name is, but very tragic. I think that they learned something from it just as well as others. With the responsibility of cops when they're the first responders when there's an active shooter. I know we see on TV that they wait and call for backup and go in. Unfortunately, in a lot of states, including Texas, what has happened that the law requires that you go in and you neutralize the threat. Whether you succeed or not, it is your job to serve and protect. And when you don't do that, you can be held accountable. So I, for one, didn't know that. So the job of the cops is supposed to engage. But we're gonna run the content. We're gonna get through it. A content disclaimer. I do not own the rights to this content. This content is for entertainment and education only, and fair use is in full effect. And once again, there's the Uvalde school officer charged in the mass shooting trial. Then we also have a documentary on the person that actually, if you would call him a person, that actually took 29 lives of kids and 2 adults. Tragic. So let's get to it. Now, what we're going to get to now, this right here is going to be the opening arguments. Never really do this before, but let's start with the defense opening statements and what they're, and remember, opening statements is not evidence. Yes, the jury hears it, but it is not considered as testimony. That's another learning thing that I've learned along the way. Opening and closing statements are not to be used as evidence. But let's go.
The monster who hurt those children is dead. And I mean, it's emotion. I could understand why Bill, when he talked to you, I could understand why he had emotion. I can't talk to you without it either. I think you heard me say it yesterday. This is one of the worst things ever happened in our country. There's only been a few like this many, this young, innocent. It's awful. But Adrian Gonzalez did the best he could with what he knew at the time. Adrian Gonzalez, the prosecution got up here in the opening statement, and you're going to see, and Nico, my partner, he's going to come up here and he's going to go through the times after I talk to you. But you're going to see that the prosecutor has tried to condense time at some points and then tried to stretch it out. But one of the things that you didn't hear in his opening was any preciseness of the times, we heard about a minute. That's not what we're going to do in this trial. We're going to talk about what Adrian knew, what was happening second by second.
So like it's a
So we're going to
whole bunch of
understand
lack of
that
training.
we're right. We know that Adrian never
Hey,
was
so
able to
Chevy.
confront the gunman. But the prosecution's going to agree, and the evidence is going to prove throughout the trial, Adrian never saw it. The prosecution says knowing the general location. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And one of the things that you heard the prosecution say, you heard him say that Adrian said he's over there in the parking lot. He's over there in the teacher's parking lot on the west side of the building. What he didn't tell you is that when Adrian said that, and Nick is going to talk about it, when he said that, this is the parking lot on the west side of the building.
So I think most of what this case is going to be about is, was these officers properly trained? Did they actually know what to do in the situation? Besides being able to say, well, I never actually done it. Never actually was in this situation before, but these are the things that you train for. So when you are in these situations, you will know how to react, hopefully.
Adrian calls that out. He's over here, all the way on the other side of this building. And as far as being here, calling it out, the shooter had already entered the building at the time that Adrian says he's on the west side of the building in the teacher's parking lot. He does not know. Adrian does not know where he is. But I want to talk about it using this map so that you can
Remember, opening
of what
and
happened.
closing
First,
statements are not
the issue was
evidence.
Sorry.
Hey, you got anything you want to add? What's up, Chevy?
What's up?
Welcome to the panel.
So, thank you. So, just that this case, has me, I would say, in a little uproar, only because the cops had ethical and moral obligation to save those babies, and they didn't. This is the one case that has, I guess, bothered me, I would say, out of all of them. Do you know that there has been 510 mass shootings in the United States as of year to date? That's a crazy number.
I absolutely did not know that.
Yeah, that's a ridiculous amount of. I mean, we have to do something, and the fact that I think parents, teachers, everyone should get together and do something about that number. But no, this is a great case to go over.
So let me ask you this: since you went there, what would you suggest to happen to actually make this better? Like what kind of situations that you will implement?
Raising the age from 18 to 21 with AR-15s.
That's a good one. I like that.
If you can't drink, you can't buy tobacco products, but you can buy an AR-15. Does that make any sense?
Doesn't make sense at all. And Texas is one of them places that always have had loose gun laws. It's crazy.
So ask me where the first mass shooting occurred.
It probably wasn't in Texas. I don't know. Where was it?
No, it was Texas. Texas was the
Oh,
very first mass shooting.
now was it?
Yep.
And was it someone under the age of 18?
No, he was not under the age of 18. If I'm not
Okay.
mistaken, it was at some a university. He was in a tower and he was shooting people from a tower.
Oh, I ain't seen that one yet. That's crazy work. So he was
Yeah, that
sniping.
was in I was the yeah, he was a sniper. I think it was like the 1920s, I want to say. But Uvalde like we'll talk about that later, but it has a real similarity to that one case I was telling you about
Oh, okay.
in
Gotcha.
McDonald, and I think it was in the 80s.
Yeah, yeah. So once again, we're the opening statements. Remember, they are not evidence, but the jury is in there, but they're not supposed to consider anything that the
Okay,
lawyers say as evidence.
I'm gonna ask you a question. Doesn't the lawyer remind you of the old lawyer in My Cousin Vinny?
I don't even. I was a gangster when they came out. I didn't watch stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Well, you gotta watch My Cousin Vinny and then look at the lawyer. He just has a strange, uncanny resemblance.
But what I did notice though is
But
the fact that their opening argument is like almost an hour, where the prosecution is only like 10, 12 minutes.
I know, and it was lackluster to me. I mean, he could have been so much more impactful. He could have made the jury relate to the victims, and I felt like he could have done so much more, and he didn't. I mean, he did stick to the facts. He did give the overview of the case, but it was lackluster. It was actually disappointing to me for it to
Maybe
be our introduction to the case.
maybe it's
That's
all
why I
in the
said,
evidence.
yeah,
Maybe
but we need passion. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
like
yeah.
first impression is everything. And I didn't like. I mean, listen, he gave the details. He did his job, but that's all he did. He did his job. There's more than what we can say about those cops.
Yeah, yeah, in which I know a lot of people gonna have mixed feelings about that. But as civilians, I think it's our right to have, to not to what to say. But once you put on that badge,
No, those
unfortunately,
cops are wrong. There was 376 cops. Every single one of them should be charged, whether it is child neglect to dereliction of duty. I'm sorry. They should all
I
be
agree.
charged.
I agree. Let's go. You can tell me to
And
stop
I
it.
honestly believe that they should all be made to pay $100,000 to pay $100,000, put it in an account, 376 times $100,000 to those families. I don't care if you gotta sell your house.
Hurt. I got you. All right, let's go.
All right.
$100,000 for all y'all. That's what Chevy said. Let's go.
No, per officer.
Per officer. Yes. 376,
Yep.
right? Yeah. I think that's fair. Let's go.
The issue was that,
I'm sorry, my assistant's trying to get in touch with me.
yeah, no, it's fine. The where we start, so just so that everybody can understand, and oftentimes in these kind of cases, we don't use the names of these monsters because that's a lot of times why they do this, right? He's a monster. What he did to these children, what you're going to see that he did to these children is
Sir, he's not here. He's not on trial.
terrible. But he didn't start with the kids. The first thing he did before he got to Robb Elementary was he shot his grandmother in the face at his home. So she gets shot in the face. He gets in a vehicle. Her house is probably a couple of blocks. So if you can imagine the map extending out here, he gets in a car. He doesn't know how to drive. He gets in a car with that firearm. He comes up Grove Street here, and you're going to see that this right here it's like a concrete culvert. It's got a railing here, and obviously somebody normally would make that turn. This dead ends into this culvert. After shooting his grandmother in the face, he comes down here, blows through this railing, and his car ends up in the concrete culvert.
Wow, he really couldn't drive.
Because if you listen to the prosecution, what the prosecution is wanting, I suppose, and expecting and trying to show you or argue in this trial is that everybody has to have perfect understanding of what's happening. But you're going to see that this is the first thing that contributes to confusion. You're going to hear that there has never been a school shooting in the United States of America that begins with somebody wrecking into a culvert like that. Now, what does this tell a police officer? And you'll hear what the evidence is going to show.
Oh, really?
This tells a police officer somebody has maybe shot an adult, right? Maybe maybe committed some other crime, maybe committed a robbery, maybe trying to get away, or maybe is drunk, right? And doesn't navigate the turn, or maybe was texting. Some other thing is happening. This is not how a school shooting starts. It just happens to be next to a school, and this is important. So the shooter wrecks, and as the prosecution says, there's a fence right here. He climbs the fence. This is the funeral home he was talking about. People come out of this funeral home because they see this wreck, and he fires shots. Now, where's Adrian at this time? And just so you understand, this is Robb Elementary. These are all the buildings in Robb Elementary. Robb Elementary does not have an officer that's there all the time. So he is not the officer for Robb Elementary. He's not the police officer that's there. He is not at that school. He is actually at a park because he typically works at the high school in Uvalde. And he's at the park with a bunch of the students who they're.
So not at the school, but at a park with the students. Of the
Why is
school.
he at the Why is he at the park? Was that an assignment?
That's why I pointed it out. But once again, you have to watch defense lawyers. So I don't know how much true that is, because that don't make sense at all to me.
No, if he's a school resource officer, he should
Exactly.
be at the school performing his duty at the school, not the park. Okay.
All right. I just had to point that out. It stood out. That's weird. But let's go.
They're having there's a different kind of celebration. As the prosecutor said, this is towards the end of the year. So students are, it's not, as we all remember in elementary and even high school, once you get to the end of May, you're not doing a whole lot.
You lost some weight, though. I'll tell you that.
Award ceremonies, talking to parents, all those other things, watching movies in the classroom, things
The
like that.
bags got bigger too.
Adrian
Stress
is
is
away
stress is
from
all
here
on his face.
at this park, but he hears the call. He's not the officer actually assigned to even take this call. The call comes out as an accident. A car has crashed into this culvert. He's not the officer assigned. There's a different officer, you'll see, that actually comes up here later on, and the person assigned to the call doesn't ever do any of the things that you're going to see that Adrian did. But he gets a call to the crash, and he says, okay, I'll go out and see what's up, see what's going on. You'll hear a particular thing about Uvalde. Uvalde has a population of people who are undocumented. You will hear that 50 times in a 2-month period is typical for there to be some sort of accident or bailout involving people who are undocumented. It's one of those things that's particular to Uvalde, and particular to the region. It's one of those things that officers deal with all the time, and it's one of the things schools deal with all the time.
Now I see why it's open so
Because
long.
when that crash happens, the school does not go into lockdown. Why
A
does
whole
the
bunch of
school go into
fillers.
lockdown? Because nobody is expecting that this is a school shooting. They're expecting that this is a drunk. This is somebody getting away from something else. Now, why is that important? Even when he's advancing or leaving his car, what they can see and what they can tell at the time is not telling anybody that he is trying to get into this school to hurt any children in this school. He is trying to get away from the scene of this crash. And that's one of the themes that throughout is that what's happening with this particular situation is
What an assault rifle.
police about what actually
This
the
dude.
intentions are of this person. They start setting up perimeters that you'll see later because they're thinking he's trying to just get away from them. Nobody's thinking, we know now, they know now, everybody knows now that he was messaging people that he's about to go shoot up a school. Everybody knows now that he was disturbed, that he was a monster, that he was trying to do this. He was speeding towards the school to do it and just happened to have not negotiated the turn and went into this culvert. But at the moment, that's not what it looks like. That's not what it looks like to him. It's not what it looks like to anybody. It's not what it looks like to anybody, any of the officers that come up. But then there is gunfire. And that's important. So he shoots here towards the funeral home. At the same time and around, Adrian is starting his response. And Adrian also comes up Grove Street. And this is important. They'll talk to you about the fact that there was Melody Flores. As Ramos is walking this way, And he does walk. He starts walk, shoots here, starts walking this way. You'll hear that people from the funeral home, the homes up here, can see that he hide behind cars, and they call that in. But that's not something communicated over the radio to the police. But they do call it in that he is here in the parking lot. By the time Adrian is getting here to the property, he understands. He starts to understand, because now the people are calling 911. They'll talk about, and now they're saying that shots are fired. So Adrian here, as he's coming down here, he starts to hear shots.
What up, Kenya?
This is a gate that gets onto that school property. It should be closed. It wasn't. And Adrian drives right through here. So he is responding, and you're seeing shots fired, hearing shots fired, understanding, okay, this is not just an accident anymore. And then you'll hear that Melody Flores, the teacher that the prosecution talked to you about, the teacher that the prosecutor said, well, she acted. Right, and we agree. She did see kids, and she told them. When we talk about the west part of the building, south part of the building, west part of the building, south part of the building. She told them, get back inside, get back inside. As she's over here telling them this, and he's here firing rounds, and you're going to know that that's where he's around this area firing rounds. Adrian is coming here. Once Ramos is behind these cars in the parking lot, Adrian doesn't see him at all. Never does. The prosecutors never ever saw, not in his life, ever saw this gunman. Gunman's here. Flores is here. Adrian sees Flores from that distance and thinks that she may be the gunman, or that she may have, or somebody. He doesn't know if it's a man or a woman. You'll see the distances. It's too far to tell. But he thinks that he's hearing that there's a person. Hearing that he knows there's shots fired. He believes that this person is either grappling with a gunman or is the gunman themselves. The reason he thinks that they might have grappled is because, as Bill said, she trips and she falls in, and this is all dirt. So there's like this cloud of dust, and it looks like from that distance. What does Adrian do? He acts. You will watch him, and there's a camera from this funeral home that will show this. He comes in and he spots her. He zeroes in on her, doesn't know it's a her, doesn't know it's a coach, doesn't know it's a teacher, thinks that that's what he's there to respond to, thinks that that's potentially the danger that he's there for. And he drives straight to her. He goes straight at her until he gets here. And this is where Adrian ends up parking his car, and you'll see that. Adrian parks here. She falls down here in the dirt. Remember, this is the south side of the building. 5 seconds after he gets out of the car and realizes this isn't a gunman, and there's nobody else here but her, and he's trying to ask what's happening. 5 seconds after that, the shooter starts shooting into the side of this school. And he does. You can see by the shell casings, they'll line here, and you'll hear that shell casings, when a gun is fired, will go back, slightly back into the right, slightly back to the right. And you can use the shell casings. There's never any over here, so he wasn't over here firing at Melody Flores. They're here, and they go right up the building here. So it gets in here. So what they're talking about is the gunman is moving up this school. And these distances, when you go and you see it in person, and you see it in some of these videos, you see the pictures, it doesn't do it justice. This and this.
And this guy's boring.
See or understand here what's going on.
He's boring, and he's actually confusing the jury.
She is telling him, but
I know, that's why I don't think he did a good job with it being so long.
She
And
told him he's
so-
in the building. And she was 100% wrong.
Like, this is 50 minutes, and he's not explosive either. I mean, not yet. And I don't see it happening. But
No.
just for
He just
content
the only thing
purposes, go ahead.
he confusing me. What the hell is he talking about?
Well,
I've already zoned out.
he's raising the reasonable doubt, but once again, for one, defense lawyers are gonna lie anyway. And he's just saying some shit. None he's saying actually makes sense.
No,
mean-
and is he pointing with his middle finger? Because that's the only thing that I'm looking at.
Yeah, you go definitely point. Yeah, and I'm gonna try to get through it just for the foundation, or I just may be fair. I just want to pay 20 minutes of it, then, because the other ones
Yeah,
on.
for real. For real. For real.
Because it's not like nothing he says going is admissible for its evidence. But let's go.
He was standing right here, shooting here. And that's okay that she's wrong. We're not requiring her to be right. This is the most tragic day of Melody Flores' life. It's the most stressful thing that she's ever been through. But as the prosecutor says, Adrian says, well, but she's telling me that he's over there and that he's wearing black. And what did Bill say? He said, well, what did he do? He didn't do nothing but call the radio for other people to come. That's what police officers are supposed to do. Whenever you hear information, you have to call it out to everybody else for everybody else's safety. So
Not when there's an active shooter.
Now, 3 officers arrive right here. One of them has a rifle.
I told you they lie.
They see him about to go in the door. One of them asks for permission to shoot. Permission, there's not even a chance for a response. Because by the time that they turn around, he's gotten inside. Adrian doesn't know any of this. Didn't see any of this. They see it because they're in a direct line of sight.
See, he just lied again.
That west entrance.
He sure did. He's lying all throughout this whole
Who
thing.
is going to tell you and going to testify to you that she's telling Adrian that he's in the building. But it's clear that
Damn defense lawyer like used car salesmen and politicians put together.
Oh boy, look at the stenographer's face.
I know. I see.
Was that he was supposed to make it to the corner of this building here. That's what he's talking
I got a
about. To
father.
the corner.
Look at her face. Is like, what the fuck is he talking about?
I didn't even notice it. Like, what is, like, he just lying. Like,
Yo, she has the same look I would have. Oh my God, thank goodness it's not me, because I sure would be like, what?
but he just, in his opening statement, he just said that his client did what he not supposed to have did. And that was to ask for permission. You don't ask for permission during an active shooting.
So now I understand why they charge him with the 29 counts of child endangerment, because he had the opportunity to stop him even before he made it inside the school.
Yeah. So all that stuff that we see on TV shows and where they stop and run back to the car and wait for the backup a SWAT team. In the state of Texas, since this is what has happened at, that is not what you do.
Now,
You go in.
before Columbine, that actually was a thing. Like, it was before Columbine, you would have to wait for backup. But since Columbine, they actually changed, I guess, responses to the school shootings. They actually used Columbine as a test run to basically design a whole new system on how to respond to mass shootings. Maybe Adrian didn't get the memo 30 years later, but yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I read somewhere where that's how they used to respond. That's why Columbine was a mess as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're not a defense lawyer, because that ain't gonna win it.
No, listen. At least I would have been. I'm more damn excitable than this dude. Like, even the stenographer's looking at him like he's crazy. Look at it. You frozen on the right part. Look how she looking at him.
She is, and he swear he cooking. Look at it. Oh my God, that's classic. All right, let's go. I'm gonna let it play for 5 more minutes, and we gonna, just for context. Well, let's go.
And distract delay. The distance from this point to this corner, there's nothing in between. And you'll hear that Adrian is doing as he's supposed to do. Once these gunshots happen, once he starts shooting into this side of the building, Adrian thinks they're taking fire. He does. He gets to the front of his car and he's trying to use the car as cover. There's a car. He has his car. This corner of the building is about 45 seconds away, walking. from where his car is, maybe 30, 32, 33, 34, 35, depending on how fast you walk or run. But you have to run through open. But his car is right there, so he doesn't do nothing. He gets behind his car to try to figure out where the gunfire is coming from. You're going to hear that these officers here, as the shooter is shooting into the building, all the way up, these officers here,
And
they
Diddy
think
just admitted
coming at them.
his client had a clear shot. He said there was nothing in
Because of the
between
nature
them.
of gunfire, and we're going to talk about it.
Yep.
Once you have a rifle fire, it's going to bounce, and it bounces off of these structures, and it echoes, and it comes back to the people, and it causes confusion. So they think that the shots are coming at him. The shots aren't, but it's understandable they think so. He thinks they're coming at him. She's going to tell you that she's telling him that he's in the building when he knows that he's not in the building. But when he calls out that he's on the west side, you'll know when he understands and knows. When Adrian finally figures out where he is, their indictment says, knowing the general location of the shooter. He does call out on the radio the general location of the shooter. 1 second after the shooter's already entered the building. When Adrian is saying that he's by the park, when he's by the cars in this lot, he's not there. He's inside. These guys saw him go in.
So Adrian lied.
Here saw what happened. Adrian is here and cannot
Because
see.
remember, we have Adrian on recording talking
Yeah.
about this.
So
Mhm.
at a certain time, and even you're going to hear these guys.
But you see how he tried to raise reasonable doubt? Adrian didn't sin, but the other guys did. Yeah, I
Mm.
bet.
Guys, they still don't know what his intent is. They think that they're setting up here. They're trying to figure out. They know he's wrecked and he shot at these people. They're assuming that he's trying to get away from them. Nobody still is assuming this is.
It's a school.
This tragedy. Once something like this happens, right? This was the only and the first time ever that a school shooting starts with a wreck and a culprit. Now, it's part of the training. Don't get confused. Don't get confused by the fact that there may be other things going on. Just like if there was a robbery at this funeral home and somebody's running out of the funeral home, it's not the first assumption back then for a police officer to say, oh, he's robbing the funeral home, then he's going to run over here and he's going to go into the classroom.
That's why there's when they any crime. I already knew you was coming
Now,
on
of
mute.
course,
Oh
that
no.
doesn't
You
excuse
knew I
it.
was
It's
coming
just
off
it's
mute.
wrong.
Listen, unless you black, because if he was black coming out of the funeral home, they would have just shot first and then asked questions later. But I guess anybody else is we don't know what they're doing. Freak out of
And
here.
it's true. But you also know that like anytime anything happened like that around a school, the school's supposed to automatic go on lockdown. So he's lying once again. Like it just yeah, he's off. I'm giving it 2 more minutes. He on the
Okay.
clock.
It contributes to the confusion. So as we get here, you'll see that, I think Bill said, his boss arrives. What happens is that some of the officers, as he's going in this way, some of the officers bring the car around to try to figure out, like, is he trying to get around here? You'll see that Coronado and you'll see that Chief Arredondo come this way and this way to where Adrian is. By the time that they talk to Adrian, you have Sergeant Page that pulled in and arrived. So what's happening is that Adrian's trying to call it out. He sees other people. He then hears and understands eventually when Sergeant Page gets there, as he's trying to brief him about what's happening, he hears that he's in the building. And Adrian is one of the first 3 people to go in. This is not a man that does nothing. This is not a man that is sitting and doing nothing. It's a man who is confused. It's a man who's talking, who has made assumptions that are understandable that turned out to be wrong. But he was trying. He was going towards that danger. And this is a man who, when it was time and they are standing here.
Listen though, his client ended up being wrong, but he did nothing wrong.
But to see the whole thing about it, he's wrong that cost 21 people their lives. Like,
Yes.
no. If I'm not, if I would, if I wish we could see the jury, because I bet you their face looks just like that lady in the back of there. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, so that was pretty much what he's saying in the opening statements. The defense
Uh,
lawyer, the
Okay.
used car salesman. Now we're gonna go to the prosecution opening statement. Hopefully they do a better job. Let's go.
You may make your opening statement.
Thank you. May it please the court.
The man is on trial.
Awards Day,
Adrian Gonzalez.
fourth graders lined up throughout
Oh,
the
that's
morning,
low.
gathered at the cafeteria with their parents. To receive certificates of achievement. It's a day of celebration. After the celebration, they returned to their homes and to their classes. They turned off the lights and they watched movies because it was a day, it was a light day. Some of the kids got to go to recess. Just down the road was Hillcrest Funeral Home. And a man named Gilbert Lamons was working at the funeral home. It was about 11:30 when a truck crashed through a rail and into a ditch. So he did what any of us would do. He went to check on the driver to see if it was okay. He and Cody Brasino left the funeral home, walked across the street, got close to the ditch when they were met with a man who exited the truck but got out with a rifle, a high-powered rifle. So as you might expect, they turned and ran. Shots were fired. So they called the police. They called the police for help. The gunman jumped over the fence, deliberate pace across the schoolyard to the southwest corner building and opened fire. Stephanie Hale was in the playground on the south end of the school. She heard the fire. And it didn't make her incapable of action. She protected the kids. She got them to safety. They went into the classrooms. They did as they'd been trained. They hid in the dark and waited for help. For the police. The teachers and the kids armed themselves with scissors.
So hold on. How was the lady and him at the playground, but they wasn't together?
No, I thought that was the lady that had put the rock by the door to bring in the supplies for the party. She called 911. She went outside to go see if she can help the person that crashed when he came out with a gun and she started running back towards him. From my understanding, she passed him because in the interviews he called her a lesbian looking lady or something like that. Um she passed him and said he's over there. She told Adrian where he was.
Interesting. So where did she pass him at then? Because I saw where she ran because she was on the phone with him, and when he started shooting at the funeral people, she ran back in the building and allegedly kicked the rock out the door.
Yeah, that's what she did.
So
But she
when did
said
she
that she
pass
passed
Adrian?
him, said he's over there, ran into the building, kicked the rock out the door, closed the door, and then banged on the doors and told him there's a shooter on campus.
Okay, I do
She to
remember that
me,
part.
she's more of a hero than the cops are.
I agree. All right, let's go.
To confront a gunman. To confront a gunman. Melody Forrest was also out there that day. She heard the shots fired. She had a concern for the kids. She was capable of action. She ran to where the gunfire was sounded. And there were kids at the south end that were about to go
So
to
wait, these
recess.
are
They
two
told, get
different
back in, get
people
back in, get back
outside.
in. And she doesn't leave her
Yeah,
post
that's
until they
that's
get
what I
back
was
in.
saying. Yeah, it's not the teacher.
Oh, okay. There's two different people outside. I thought it was just the one. I was about to say she did a whole lot on that 911 call.
Yeah, that's why I had stopped it. Cause he didn't say the one that was outside the door. He said the one that was at the playground. But then the defense lawyer said Adrian was at the playground too.
Yeah. So she must have been the one that was talking to him. Because she goes on the stand.
Okay.
So that's who
Yeah,
that was, not the lady that kicked out the rock.
yeah, okay. That
Okay,
makes more sense.
gotcha. Yeah,
All right.
two different people.
All right.
But she stays there so long that when that happens and the last kid enters, she's face to face with the gunman. And he fires on her and she turns to run. And when she turns to run, she trips and she falls.
Mm.
And when she gets up, Adrian Gonzalez, the police officer, is there. She says, he's over there. She urges him to go get him. Adrian
So
Gonzalez
that just
says,
negated
"Where?"
everything that attorney just said.
Over there. He's wearing black. He's in.
Yeah. Which is why he's the first one on the stand, it seemed like.
So that was 15 minutes of bullshit.
Yeah,
Okay.
I tell people all the time, you have to watch them defense lawyers, man. They just be saying shit. And it's crazy
For
that
real.
they're allowed to lie when the prosecution, you can get a mistrial if the prosecution lie. It's crazy, but defense, they lie all the time. Let's go to-
The teacher's parking lot as shots are ringing out. This is not confusion. He gets on the radio and says, shots are fired. He's wearing black. He's in the parking lot. He knows where he is. But Adrian Gonzalez remains at the south side of the school. The gunman makes his way up the west side of the west building where the fourth graders are. He fires shots into a classroom full of children at 102. Adrian Gonzalez remains. He moves down to classroom 104, fires shots into the classroom of 104. Adrian Gonzalez remains.
Wow.
He moved halfway down the wing, fires more shots, this time not into the building because there's no defect in the building. It's not going into the windows, it's not going into the bricks. It's also at the same time when forces are coming, other police officers are starting to arrive.
So he did all that
He
damage
did
from the
hurry
outside of the building
to
first.
the west door.
Yes.
It's
So
been-
Adrian could have stopped him. That's why they're charging him with all of those
There's a
counts.
break in the shooting, and Adrian Gonzalez remains.
That's
Then walks
crazy.
down the hallway, gets to room 111 and 112, the entryway, and fires in the neighborhood of 20 shots in the hallway. And Adrian Gonzalez remains.
Wow.
The children in 111 and 112 are done as they're trained. In the dark, lights off, be quiet, hide, and wait for Adrian Gonzalez.
How in the hell that little boy that was in the bathroom didn't hear all them damn shots? And he probably was just confused. He probably didn't know what to do. Because he ended up
Come on.
coming out the bathroom, coming around the corner, and
And
the shooter,
he looked. The shooter shot him, did he?
I,
You talking about that
I
video
can't.
of that little boy?
Yes, he shot at him. I don't know if he hit him,
Oh, okay.
but it's like maybe he was at the other end, and maybe the shooter ran out from another end. I don't know how that little boy didn't hit them shots before. He must have been in there singing to himself, or he had some earphones while he was in the
No,
bathroom, or something.
I thought that he went over there to be nosy and see what was going on.
Something, cause ain't no way in the world. Cause he was just chilling, coming right there, and he hit that corner and seen him.
Listen,
He
he
was.
peeked his head around that corner and was like, "Oh hell no, I'm out of here."
I think you may be right. I think he had to hear him, because I know he had no earphones on, so he had to hear him, and he probably just going to be nosy. You're right.
Yep.
Yep. Thinking he in a live GTA game or something.
And the gunshots getting here. And the slaughter begins. One of the shots penetrates the window going out of room 111. Melanie Flores is still urging Adrian Gonzalez to go in.
Damn.
She sees the shot come through the window. Adrian Gonzalez tells the police he sees the shot go through the window. Adrian Gonzalez gets on the radio and says, "Guys, I think he's made it in the building."
Oh.
Confusion. Adrian Gonzalez remains. For the next minute and a half, about 60 shots go into children.
Jesus.
And Adrian Gonzalez remains. 3.5 minutes into this ordeal, while Adrian Gonzalez is still standing out there, his boss shows up. Pete Arredondo, along with Sergeant Coronado. They're running up adjacent to another building, get about the same distance Adrian Gonzalez is from the gunshots, and they hear the shots going off. And Coronado yells what you would expect a police officer to yell. "Shots fired, get in the building."
I heard him say that on his body cam. I heard him say that.
Yep.
So Adrian Gonzalez joins the other two officers and Donald Page, who's just arrived, and they go into the building. He
Out of
enters the
breath,
building
may I
4
add.
minutes and 45 seconds after he got there. And after the damage was done. So we ask ourselves, was this his first day on the job?
Damn.
Was he a rookie? Adrian Gonzalez was a veteran of 10 years. He'd been at the Uvalde Police Department for 10 years. He'd been at the school district for a year. He had thousands of hours of training. He went to compel training, which was active shooter training, which is pretty straightforward. When you hear gunshots, you go to the gunfire. But it wasn't just active shooter training. They didn't just sit in a classroom, they practiced. They practiced, what do you do if it's in an open area, like this open area? And they trained Adrian Gonzalez how to do his job safely. And that is, you look for concealment and cover. Concealment means the gunman can't see you. It may not protect you if he shoots, but he can't see you. Cover means you're protected. The corner of a building means you're protected.
Thanks.
We're not asking Adrian Gonzalez to commit suicide. He has been trained to go to the corner of a building and distract, delay, and impede the gunman while help is arriving. But Adrian Gonzalez does nothing more than mic his microphone and tell other officers what's going on.
Okay, prosecutor.
So why are we here? When a child is in danger and calls 911, we have the right to expect a response.
Mm.
I guess that was his mic drop moment.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying.
He,
It wasn't explosive, but I
bu-
think he,
but he did make an impact. I would sit there and say that his opening argument was far better than the defense. And he was straight to the point. It wasn't dragging out and going to a map and boring the jury. It was straight to the point. Why we here? This is why we here. This is what he didn't do. Here's the details, and then we're just gonna prove it. There you go. So
yeah,
maybe it was
and
a little bit more impactful after watching the defense. I never saw the defense.
yeah, yeah, it was, yeah. That I don't know what he was doing. He was lying for one. And to piggyback on what you said earlier, like maybe, it's the color of the skin. Why, the hesitation was there. I also want to add too. I've seen cops go in a blind building for a drug dealer and for drugs and money quicker than when they went in there and saved them kids.
Yep.
Which is, when I think about it, it's crazy.
And but
Like,
the another too is that I kind of okay. So Adrian, yes, I understand, and Peter Arredondo, I understand why they're charging them. But everybody else, I kind of understand why they're not, because Arredondo told them that he was detained or confined. If that's the information that they're going off of, then they wouldn't act immediately. But then
facts.
when they were in the hallway, they heard all the gunshots and the kids saying help. So I mean, it's kind of like a catch 22. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that that's why they didn't charge anybody else, any other police officer as of yet, because of the misinformation being said by Peter Arredondo.
Yeah, you're right. Hmm. All right, so next we're gonna go to, so there was the opening statements from both the prosecution and the defense. So now we're gonna go to the short where the teacher's name. This really sad. So going to get this over with. And prayers out to them,
To
the
all the
kids,
victims.
family, to all the victims, man, the teachers, even even the kids that survive, because they're gonna have to live with this trauma for the rest of their life.
Not to mention the husband of the teacher who died 2 days later of a heart attack at her memorial.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
this impacted far more than just those beautiful souls.
yeah, yeah. This one right here messed up the community. That the kids stayed in that actually went to the school, because even some kids left to go home early because it was ceremony day. So a lot of them chose to go home with their parents. But even that, to find out that 19 of their classmates, where they go to school at, was gunned down, that also can take a toll on a child too, especially a child. It's crazy. So we're gonna remember the kids. And here we go. This one gonna be hard.
Josiah Garcia.
And whose class was he in?
He was in my class.
Did he survive?
No.
885.
Rogelio Torres, he was in my classroom
Did he survive?
and he did not survive.
I'm going to ask you about each one. So if you just say that, if not. State's Exhibit 886.
Alicia Ramirez, and she was in room 112. She did not survive.
State's Exhibit 887.
Neve Bravo, she was in my classroom and she did not survive.
State's Exhibit 888.
Miranda Mathis, and she was in the next classroom and she did not survive.
State's Exhibit 889.
Eliana Torres, and she was in my classroom and she did not survive.
890.
Leila Salazar, she was in my classroom and she did not survive.
891.
Annabelle Rodriguez, she was in my classroom and she did not survive.
892.
Jace Huevanos, he was in my classroom and he did not survive.
893.
Eliana Garcia, and she was in room 112. She did not survive.
Exhibit 894.
Tess Mata, and she was in the next classroom and she did not survive.
895.
Maite Rodriguez, she was in the next classroom and she did not survive.
896.
Jayla Silguero, she was in the next classroom and she did not survive.
897.
Amory Jo Garza, she was in the next classroom and she did not survive.
898.
McKenna Elrod, she was in the next classroom and she did not survive.
900.
Alexandria Rubio, she was in my classroom and she did not survive.
902.
Jacqueline Cáceres, she was in my classroom and she did not survive.
903.
Jose Flores, he was in my classroom and he did not survive.
904.
Xavier Lopez, he was in my classroom and he did not survive. Yes, I do.
That is.
That's a difficult one.
Yeah.
That was really difficult. God bless those babies for real.
So this right here, like you heard me and Chevy talk about kind of what we think. So this next video is gonna have some people that actually, that's specializes in it to say what was done wrong, what was done right, and their take on it. Of course, they're not the jury, they're not the judge, but they're gonna give some legal advice. So let's go.
Holly? Well, what do you think?
So when court resumes, we're going to see a redirect by the prosecution. They're going to have to try to salvage the many good points that the defense attorney made on cross-examination. It's going to be a tough chore, but I believe that the defense has scored a lot of points here. So I'm curious to see what the prosecutor is going to do to try to salvage this.
Can they?
It'll be difficult with Sergeant Coronado. And you guys kind of got a sense towards the end of Coronado's testimony that he was being more agreeable with the line of questioning from the defense.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that other officers were there possibly could have done things to either slow down, distract, preclude in some way Ramos's actions, that other officers had a chance to maybe take a shot or do something.
Mm-hmm.
So it really seemed like he turned towards the defense side and in a way started being a little bit more defensive about his own actions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be difficult for the prosecution.
Yeah, and let me reset just a little bit. We had all morning on the stand, we had retired Uvalde Police Department.
Did you expect to hear that from?
No, but I think that there was a moment during the trial, a mistrial moment. I kind of think that's what they're talking about.
Okay.
That there was a mistake made by the prosecution. I'm just trying to listen because I've never seen this before, but I'm not sure if
Yeah.
they're talking about a mistrial moment or if they're talking about an actual testimony. So I'm just gonna listen some more to gain some insight.
This actually the legal reaction to day 9 testimony. So you're right. It's for a particular
Okay.
testimony. And it
Okay.
seems like to me that one of the prosecution witness or someone that testified, or maybe was an expert, what they call an expert, or that they called to the stand that was leaning more towards the officer. All right, let's go.
Sergeant Daniel Coronado was on the stand, and we saw his body cam and we heard dispatch recordings. It's his body cam where you get the most view of Adrian Gonzalez's, going into the school and all that sort of
Right.
thing. I got a text message from someone who was in the courtroom, and they said that it was a mic drop moment when the prosecution got Coronado to agree that Saucedo had the gunman in his sights with that
Right.
AR-15 and didn't take the shot.
Yeah, and he really emphasized the point with the defense attorney saying, listen, when you are defending yourself or another from imminent threat of danger, bodily injury, death, do you need to ask permission?
Mhm.
And Coronado said, no, you don't. And he said, well, was it unusual that he was asking you? And he did find it so. So you did have officers out there, other officers who could have done something. But again, this goes towards the defense of we're looking at all this through a sterile environment. We're in the courtroom. We're analyzing this. We've had months and months and years to dissect everything. In that moment, each one of these officers could have done something. And it makes you think as a juror, does Officer Gonzalez have to pay for the lack of decision making, for the fear, for the chaos, for the concern by felony conviction?
Does he get held to a different standard? I mean, is that I understand, that doesn't mean you can't charge other people, but it just, you get the sense through all the testimony and through the body cam of just how the chaos.
Right.
They don't know what's happening. And I also thought it was important, and we didn't talk about this right before the break, the discrepancy in what gets actually broadcast out onto the radio.
Right.
This 911 call is coming, and obviously police officers in the field, they've not heard that 911 call. 911 call comes out saying there's, been a wreck and there's a man with a gun.
Right.
But there's a whole lot more in that 911 call
Right.
that doesn't get broadcast out to officers. And, that's not that does happen sometimes. It wouldn't be the first time. I've covered cases where, there's a lot of detail in the 911.
You know what I'm thinking about too? I wonder when the last time the school actually had a what you call them
What?
when a active shooter drill.
You're
And
supposed to
I'm
have one every year. But my whole thing is, as a police officer, isn't it your business to be abreast on what is going on and to find out? Isn't that your job? Like, are we really ignorance is not a defense.
it's not them facts. You're right.
So why are we giving him ignorance as a defense?
Yeah, and
Especially when it's your job to investigate and find out what's going on.
yeah, I agree. And interact you know, in a timely manner. And but from what I heard, I didn't ask that question for a particular reason. It's just like because from what I've seen, that the students and the teachers did what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, so we're talking about 376 cops in that hallway, all who either had a pistol, a bulletproof vest. Those students had a table. And
but
we're sitting there actually giving a defense to Adrian? Okay.
yeah, it's sad. And they reference a lot in their questioning was the typo firepower he had. And they knew that I heard one guy say, well, I wanted to help, but I didn't want to die. Shouldn't no one wants to, but you signed up to be a police officer. You signed up to serve and protect. And per your manual, per your protocol, per your training, you were supposed to go in there. Let's go.
There was one female officer that sat there said that if it was her child in there, she would have rushed in there. But it was not her child in there, so she stayed outside. She lost her job, and then when she got hired for another police department, when they heard her say that on body cam, they fired her.
Yeah. And I wonder who I wonder who that officer was that went up there when it was like 2 times by himself and nobody followed him.
Yep.
He actually got fired upon through the wall, and he went back again,
Yep.
and nobody
As if
followed
I'm
him.
not mistaken, it was fragments that actually pierced his ear.
Yes, he did get hit by fragments. Yes, he was bleeding,
Yeah. Yeah. And they just put a Band-Aid on it and he went back in.
and he stayed there. Exactly.
Yep.
All right, let's go.
He-
Stay away from that, but let's go.
911 call that officers don't have.
Sure. Well, and yes, again, you're holding Officer Gonzalez liable for the few seconds. Now, this entire
Nah, it wasn't a few
situation
seconds.
unfolded over many minutes, right? Before it was ultimately resolved with Ramos' passing. But we're really dissecting the seconds that Gonzalez had to make a decision. Did not have a lot of information. Didn't get.
So what I got to say to that, and this probably is a defense lawyer. He's coming from the defense, but when that prosecutor said the fact that he shot into them rooms, and Adrian had that corner that he could have popped his head around while he was firing into that, because if you're firing into the classrooms, he's not even able to watch you. So he could have, like you said, he could have peeped his head off around there and took out the target.
Or he could have just shot him while he was in his unmarked vehicle, because even the teacher didn't know that he was a cop. And she says that on the stand. He was not in a marked vehicle. He was in an unmarked vehicle. Obviously, the shooter would not have known that he was a cop, and he could have took his shot right then and there.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I agree. Let's go. I like that point. That's even better point than mine. I like that. The prosecutor didn't even say that, but good job.
Like you said, for the information from the 911 call, the dispatch. He gets to the scene. He's trying to gather information. Coronado described it himself when Coronado got there. There could be 1, 2, 3 suspects. It's dark hallways.
Right.
There's an echo situation going on with the firearms. They're not sure if they're being fired at. They don't know if there's children inside the school or not, because there's some sort of awards thing going on. Lots of confusion, and it's happening within moments.
Right.
So again, emotionally, as parents, as grown-ups, as anybody responsible, we want the police officer to run in there, kick the doors in, and do something.
Right.
But again, we're talking about the difference between a moral, emotional threshold versus a legal one.
Yeah, and we've talked about
Oh, that's
this.
crap. He had a moral
holding
and
officers
ethical
accountable
obligation to go
criminally
in there and save those
is
babies.
a really, I think is
That's
still
crap.
a difficult one. And and I thought that Daniel, Nicola Hood.
Did you say something?
Did a really
Really?
good job when he was
Yeah, I
talking
said that
about
that's
how,
crap what he just
you
said.
arrived there.
He had a moral and ethical obligation to go in there and save the teachers and the children. Where you get these
I am telling
weird
you,
legal
he
and
is a
that
defense lawyer. He's a defense. He has to be. I guarantee you.
and any good lawyer is going to tell you that ignorance is not a defense. So just because he didn't know something, he cannot use that as a defense tactic. So by him keep saying, "Oh, he didn't know," ignorance is not a defense.
It's not.
Where you
no
get
take.
these people from?
Listen, they're no friend of mine. Let's go.
There, but you park in one spot and then you drive around away from the gunfire, trying to make him explain that, because
let's
aren't you
go.
supposed to run to the gunfire?
Right.
And
Kind of contradicts all that training that we've heard about earlier.
all this active shooter training.
Right.
Why are we waiting? Why aren't we running to the school? Because apparently we expect Adrian Gonzalez to immediately run in the school.
Yeah. Well, and he did follow up
Okay,
with
so
that.
hold on.
He's
Hold
got
on. I
Coronado
just
to admit that
remembered
Gonzalez
something.
did go into the.
Let's go.
Stoneman Douglas in Florida, didn't they charge the cop for not running in there and stopping that shooter?
Yeah.
So I thought this was a precedent case. It isn't a precedent case. That must have been the precedent case. They
Mm.
did charge a cop for not responding and not following their training protocols. If I'm not, and I think that Trump had even called him a coward, if I'm not mistaken. Not Adrian, but the Stoneman Douglas, the cop from I have to look that one up. I think he was charged because they just something they said just made me remember that.
Yeah, one that like as many of them lost their jobs, some of them quit, some of them got transferred out, and I think it's actually
Oh, they
two.
fired the whole department in Uvalde. Everybody lost their job. They everybody's new.
Oh, okay.
They fired everybody.
Let's go.
School, in fact, was in front of Coronado,
Right.
stayed in that funnel, that fatal funnel, and only left the scene when ordered to by a commander, by his supervisor,
By Peter Ardondo.
to go outside and try
Call
to
for
contact
tactical.
SWAT. So yeah, you can criticize the decision making, the training, the moment to moment thought process that Gonzalez may have had, or the other officers there. But does that rise to the level of criminal liability?
Yeah, because they seem to want to hold, because the focus is around his immediate actions upon arrival.
Right.
And it's a really short period of time.
Right. Yeah, and that is any first responding officer could say, and I've questioned many of them both as a prosecutor and defense attorney. You're asking a lot. The first officer at the scene has
No, we're
to
asking him to do his
try to
job.
gather information that's being called
Exactly.
in.
What he
not always
signed up
clear,
for. What I
sometimes
said earlier.
conflicting,
Right.
identify potential threats, identify potential victims. Who can he help?
Imagine a fireman not want to go into a fight. Like,
Yeah, imagine me not wanting to teach my students. Like,
yeah. I mean, yeah. I agree.
What does he need? What type of reinforcements do you need? I mean, at that point, when he first got the call out, again, the initial call was a car accident. And so there's all sorts
What?
of issues that are coming to play.
it was an issue.
And you're
He's right.
asking
But then when she
Officer
said that he's
Gonzalez to make
got a
all these-
gun, that kind of changed the phone call, didn't it?
And not only that, he stood outside shooting into the building. It ain't like he ran from the car crash and ran immediately into the building.
And if I'm not mistaken, Adrian called out shots fired.
He
So
did.
doesn't that kind
We
of
just
change
heard
the
it.
call? Jesus.
So
I don't know
so
where you get
so
these people from.
so what Adrian doing? He was waiting from dispatch to say, "Oh, we just got a call. There's shots fired." Then he would have reacted. Like, come on, man.
Hmm.
Yeah, this one different. But let's go.
split-second decisions.
And make them perfectly,
Right.
or you're going to be held criminally
Right.
liable.
Yeah. And we keep going back.
Damn
to that. Of course,
right.
the
If you don't do your
families,
job
in no
and
way
people
does
die,
this-
you should be held criminally liable. The only people that can get away with not doing their job is the weatherman. Other than that, everybody else got to do their damn job.
Shit, and we be mad at him when he get it wrong. We just don't listen to him no more. 'Cause they ain't never right no more. Like this damn weather, government weather, they just push a button. Something. This shit is simulated. For real.
assuage any of that, right? I mean, the emotional loss of losing your child like that is devastating.
Oh,
But the issue becomes: is this Ramos's fault, the shooter? Is this the police department as a whole for lack of training, or are we going to hold Adrian Gonzalez responsible?
yeah, and that's the hard part because, we've heard testimony from these teachers and we've heard testimony from the parents that is just gut wrenching. For me, actually, the part in the trial that the part that hit me the most was they played the surveillance video from the school. And you couldn't see it, but you could hear it.
Yeah.
And you could hear one of the teachers calling 911, and you could hear the sounds of gunfire. And I thought, my God, the gunfire is never going to stop,
Yeah.
And then after that, and my heart just dropped. And then the other thing, thought for me that was really impactful was when they had the medical examiner testify
Mm.
and just go through kid by kid by kid. They're the ones that died, and I just and then we had a parent testified right after that, and it just you can't hear all that and not be affected. And they were saying at the beginning of the trial that there's not that all of these jurors, in fact I think anybody that is in that courtroom or is listening to this,
I
of course
agree.
we're getting a little bit more of a sanitized version because we're
Right.
not seeing everything. You're forever changed by it.
Oh,
But the jury is.
for sure. Yeah, and to your point, I mean, about the emotional part of it, I made a note of this before, and just kind of going through the timeline of things, and there were call outs from officers, not necessarily with the testimony we heard today, but previously, about requesting resources and equipment and those ballistic shields and extra ballistic shields. And again, as a parent, you're thinking those little children didn't have resources. They
Right.
didn't have ballistic shields. Just go help them, right? And when you're watching that body cam footage of Coronado's, there's this emotional, visceral reaction to all that. I mean, it's just a tragic situation all around.
It is hard, and it's hard. I don't. There's no good explanations for why it took them 77 minutes to finally make entry, and when you've got 370 plus officers out there, that is hard to explain. But I don't. But holding Adrian Gonzalez accountable for the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't think that's the resolution. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think there's a failure in decision making, a failure in the chain of command in terms of how information went from one person to the other, failure in training, whatever the case may be. And they do need to be held accountable in that sense. What does that look like? I'm not sure.
Hold on one
However,
second.
holding
I want to
Adrian
give
Gonzalez out
context to that
alone
77 minutes.
Yeah, I was
Just so
thinking
everybody
about it.
can understand that 77 minutes. We have been live for an hour and 17 minutes. That's how long that it took for those cops to go in there. Those babies were in there with that shooter for as long as we have been live right now. And you're telling me that Adrian Gonzalez is not responsible? They stood outside for as long as we've been live right now. And they had no help. They called 911 5 times. Man, go somewhere with this bullshit.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. 77 minutes, man. That is a long time to know that there are kids in there. And there was one guy say he didn't know rather because it was towards the end of the year and it was so quiet. So they didn't think any kids was in there. What you talking about?
What do
You
you
ain't
think we
going there and
train
see.
the kids to do?
You ain't
We
going there and
train
see
the
either.
kids to be we train the kids to be quiet. That's what we
Exactly.
tell
So
them to do.
they
That's
they
what we
done their
train the
job.
kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Man. All right, let's go. Let's see. Like 8 more minutes of this.
Oh God.
Yeah. But the good thing about it, the documentary coming up, and I think it's gonna explain a lot about the shooter upbringing.
Yeah.
And
That I mean, I normally don't like to give context to the monster in any of these cases, but understanding a little bit of his background maybe will make someone look at their own, whether it's cousin, brother, hell, daughter, and see some warning signs and actually seek some help. So whereas you normally don't like to give shine to the monster in this story, but kind of he has some warning signs. There are some precursors in his case where if someone would have just asked questions or seek help, maybe he could have been saved too.
yeah, facts. Facts. Because it was plenty. I mean plenty. Like he didn't hide it.
No, he did not hide it. And it kind of makes you wonder about the people around him.
I agree. I mean, I don't like to. I mean, this is a case to where the facts are there. When you see the things he was doing online, the things he was doing in school, the fact that there was one school year he didn't even go to school for 90 days. Like,
Wait a minute. Is he the no, he's not the one that failed the 8th grade 3 times, is he? I seen so many cases that they're kind of like jumbling together.
he was
We'll look at
he
it.
was behind a few grades, so I don't know if it was the eighth 3 different times, but he most definitely was behind at least 2 grades. So it may be him. I know
Okay.
it was at least
I'm
two.
not sure. I'm not sure. I mean, I've been looking at so many cases, but because you know I'm not really much in the Mo3 sector that much. I've just been looking at content, but so they're kind of like jumbling together, but I'm not sure if he's the one. But we're gonna watch it anyway.
Yeah,
Okay, go back to these people that's making me mad.
right. It's not so much of her as him. I think he's a
Yeah, it's
defense lawyer
him. It really is him.
because
But
he can talk about this with almost no emotion, and you actually can see the emotion in her. So I think he's a defense because I'm telling you, you got to be a different type of person to be a defense lawyer to take on these type of cases, and
and
even
to
some
actually
cases defend. Yeah. So
to defend, yeah, because basically you're saying that it's okay. His actions, basically, what he has to do, well, not him, but the defense attorney has to sit there and say his actions did not cause the death of 21 people.
yeah, it takes a yeah. That's different. I think even as a defense lawyer, there been some cases I probably broke defense lawyer. There be some cases I wouldn't take for real. I ain't taking
For real.
unless I really feel like you're innocent. Like I'm not helping no guilty unaliver or someone that could have stopped it or uh 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 a essayer. You know what I'm saying? Like I ain't defending you, boy. Go to jail.
Mm-mm.
Lose your case on purpose. Like what the fuck are we doing?
Oh, you can't do that. You lose
They
your
have,
license.
I lose my
Ineffective
license, and they have
ineffective
all kind
use
of
of
mistrials
counsel.
and appeals and everything fooling with me. I mean, cost the state all kind of money.
Yeah,
I
you
ain't
can't do
lying.
it. All
Yeah,
right, let's
that's
look at
why.
Baldy
Yeah,
now.
I don't do it, but some people do. Man, it's like like this. The evidence is overwhelming. Like you see them on camera, and you gonna say, "Well, it could have been anybody that looked like them." I'm like, what?
Mm. They got DNA proof. Well, you know
Yes.
DNA DNA isn't
Like,
100%.
like you have to be a different type of person to defend someone like that. And unfortunately, like it is, I wouldn't say unfortunately, fortunately, there's some called the Constitution that because just imagine the people that actually didn't, and I don't want to get too far off the content, just imagine the people that did, you know, evidence went to a grand jury and they got indicted, but they was actually innocent. You would want that defense lawyer then, that good defense lawyer. So it's kind of like
A catch-22.
yeah, I don't want no part of it though. But let's go.
And essentially making him a scapegoat for those failures doesn't seem very just.
Yeah, and it's a difficult one, and I don't, it's obviously going to ultimately be for a jury to decide. What do you think? Of course, we don't know what the jury's going to do, but if you were going to make a case like this as a prosecutor, what did you need to do?
It's a very good question. I think that number one, establishing the emotional component is very big, because it is. It's sad, and anything and everything that could have been done to prevent the death of one child, much less 19 children and all the others who are injured, all of that should have been done. And pointing out all along the way things that did not occur to prevent that, or things to highlight as a prosecutor. But we talked about this earlier. I do think it almost would have been more beneficial to the state to have brought charges against several of the officers. If we're going to hold officers to this standard, then all of them who failed to act in the similar way should be held liable. And if that
I
had
agree.
been the case, I think it would seem less that this is just a symbolic situation where, we feel bad for the families. This has been a tragedy. We don't have Ramos to go after, so we're gonna put somebody on for trial. So I think as a prosecution, they likely needed to keep it a little bit shorter than it's been, get more to the point. The emotional part of it needed to get played up, which they've done a decent amount of, but they've also kind of meandered a little too often.
Okay, we have the judge on this.
Thank you. Members of the jury, my apologies. Something's come up that's beyond our control. A juror's wife has been taken to the hospital over lunch, and he's at the hospital. We don't know the status, and we do.
All right. So there's that. Now this one is hard. I don't know if you want to watch this one. This is where the families was voicing their opinions to the. Actually, I think this is good.
I saw it. I saw it. Is that when they were at the council?
Yeah,
The council meeting? Yeah, I saw it. No, they had every right to express themselves and the disappointment and like people need to understand how tax dollars pay their salaries.
I
So they
agree.
had every right to voice their opinion, to expect you to at least do a monicum of your job. They sent their babies to school expecting them to come home and they didn't come home. That night they
Absolutely.
were all laying in the hallway, that same hallway that all those cops were lined up on, they were all laying there in body bags overnight.
Mm, mm, mm.
Like it's unfair. It's disgusting.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
it couldn't have been me. Because they would have had to bleep every word I said out of my mouth.
Yeah, that's
And I
that,
probably
that's
would have been restrained.
yeah, that's a hard one. I'm gonna play the cop that actually went in and breached. Man,
He did what?
the one that actually showed up and actually went in, and then a few more officers followed. But it wasn't until he walked up, was actually off on an off day. Just went for a run, was on his way to the gym or leaving the gym, and he got a call. And he didn't know whether his younger baby was in school or not. But she actually attended that school and she ended up being fine. She ended up being one of the ones that make it out. But this man here was courageous. So let's go. Shout out to him.
And I'll direct your attention then, if we could, go to May 24th, 2022. You recall that day?
Yes, sir.
Were you on duty that day?
I was off duty.
And around 11:30, what were you doing?
I had just finished up a run. I was on the way to the gym in my patrol unit. They let us take it.
Okay, he was on the way to the gym.
What do you mean by I just finished up a run?
Yeah, I just ran. I was on the way to the gym. It was my day off. But I had my patrol unit. They let us take it to the gym. They don't pay you to work out, but they let you do it on your time off.
So on your time off, you
Shout out to him staying fit because a lot of them fat ass cops was probably
I
sitting there
ran a
eating
couple
them.
miles and I was on the way to the gym.
to do weights.
Yes.
Okay. And did something keep you from getting to the gym?
I got a text message. There's a group message with it's the sheriff, the chief, the deputies. And that's when I heard about an active shooter at, well, they said a school. I didn't know what school yet. So I turned around.
You heard active shooter and you turned around.
Yes, sir.
Where did you point your vehicle?
I was going westbound on 57 towards La Pryor. I turned eastbound, headed towards Batesville to take 117 towards Uvalde.
So the active shooter, you knew it was in Uvalde,
Yes, sir.
and is that your jurisdiction?
No,
Is it your county?
no,
And yet you went.
yes.
And how long did it take you to get there?
I think I stepped into the building at 11:50 something. I'm not 100% sure. 20 minutes or less, maybe.
Okay. And on your way there, did you drive the speed limit?
No, no.
Tell us how you got there.
As fast as that truck would go, I just quick.
As fast as you could go, you got there.
Mhm.
And when you got there, where did you stop?
I stopped at a parking lot. I don't know if it's the northeast, to the right of a cafeteria, to get my rifle and put on a vest that I had.
Okay. May I approach your honor? Yes, sir. There's a pointer right there in front of you. Take you a second to look at Geraldine Street, Rose Street, and Robb Elementary. Okay.
So this would be the cafeteria?
There's people right here on the end. If you can just scoot
This,
that way.
this man here is a hero. And if there was other officers out there like that,
If this is gonna be the cafeteria, there's
Man,
a little pickup area.
things would've been
here
so much
I
better.
parked. Around this area, there should be a parking lot or something. I don't know if it's in view, but there's gonna be around this area here.
Just out of view by the cafeteria, there was a parking area, and that's where you park.
Yes, sir.
And that's on that far bottom corner to the right, far right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. How were you dressed on the way over there?
I had I'm sorry. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt and running shoes.
Okay. And so is that the same way you were dressed by the time you got there?
Yes. Minus I put on a vest that I had on the seat.
So when you got there, you put on a vest. Tell us about the vest.
It's just bulletproof. I'm not sure if it's what the rating is, but it's all I had, so I just put it on. It's a black vest. Yes, sir. It said sheriff on it.
So you don't know if it was rated for guns or for handguns or for.
Not at the time, no.
That's what you had, so that's what you put on.
Yes, sir.
Did you have to have anything else with you? Besides the.
No, that was it. Phone, everything stayed in the truck. No body cam, nothing.
How about helmets?
No helmet.
Any weapons?
I had an AR rifle with I loaded maybe 12, 13 rounds in there.
And did you take that with you?
Yes, sir.
What did you do?
I see some parents, I believe those parents approaching from the right into the parking lot. There's two BP agents. Looks like they're taking cover. They have their rifles out. So as I see the parents approaching, I load real quick, get out. Then I ask where the shooter's at. He looks a little confused, but points somewhat in the direction of the main building he was at. So I run towards the cafeteria. I know there's a gate there. I picked my kid up there. I know the school. I just didn't know the name at the time.
Let me stop there for a second. You said you picked your kid up there?
Yeah, I picked my daughter up right there on the side of the cafeteria. There's a little driveway you pick up the kids. So I picked her up there before I know where the main office is at and the cafeteria. Other than that, I just know that location.
So was she going to school there that day?
Yes.
Okay. So then what happened?
So I know there's a gate right there to the cafeteria. So I make my way to the gate. There's a school. I think it was a school officer coming out. I think it was Mike Hernandez. He has something in his hand. He's walking away and ask him where the shooter's at. And same thing, he looks kind of confused, point. So I go past him. There's a parallel buildings after the.
So they see a plainclothes person with an AR-15 and a bulletproof vest and shorts, and they don't ask no damn questions. They just start pointing. What
I
the?
hope he Hopefully he had his badge or something, but he didn't say he had a badge though.
No. What? Let me just, I'm going on mute.
Yeah, it is crazy, and they're hiding from the threat and and walking away from the threat, and he's running to it. Check him out.
Through the cafeteria behind it, you have those parallel buildings and the main building. So I run in between those buildings. I think I don't know if it was county or those two officers. Same thing. I ask where the shooter's at, and they point towards the main building. Like I don't know the direction. They say, "Be careful, he's shooting out of the window." So I make my way past that, and then next thing I know, I'm in the building. I don't remember if there was somebody at the door or not. And from there, I just remember linking up with Canales and whatever officers were there, pointing their barrels down the hall.
Okay. Now approach again, Your Honor, to show. You'll show us the path that you took from your vehicle to get to the building that you're talking about.
So I was parked here. I made my way over here towards the gate. This is where I ran into the other officer. Ran through here. Those two officers, I believe, right here. Then I made my way into the building right here. These are the windows they were talking about that he was shooting out of.
Where were the officers when they told you, be careful, he's shooting out the windows?
Somewhere right around here.
And did they point to the windows they were talking about?
Yes, it was going to be these windows here.
Okay. So when you found out that he was shooting, did that stop you from going forward?
No, I just ran quicker.
You did what?
I just ran faster to get in there.
To get in there?
Yes.
When you found out he was shooting?
Yes.
And where did you go?
I made entry to this doorway right here, and that's where I can't remember what happened between here, and I linked up with those officers. I can't remember if someone was at the door either.
Okay. But you got to the
Tunnel
main
vision.
hallway,
Yes, sir.
and then you say you linked up with other officers.
Yes.
Tell us what that means.
So when I get there, I make contact with I believe it was Lieutenant Eddie Canales, and they're just briefing me on the situation. They're telling me which classroom they think the shooter's at. I remember them describing the chair. They're like, where the chair is at. At some point, I asked if they wanted to make entry, and no. They say something about a negotiator and a shield. He explains that they got fired at as they approached the door.
And so what did you do when you found out that the police officers had been fired at?
There wasn't really much I could do. Whatever they needed, I just joined in on whatever they were doing.
So what did you do? What did you join in on?
On the hallway, I just stood left of, I believe it was Eddie Canales. I just stood left of him, pointing my rifle there, waiting to see what was the next plan.
So the only point I want to make is that do you remember the part where the shooter got frustrated with the cops and asking them and taunting them, asking them where they were?
No, I missed that one.
Yeah, so it took so long that the shooter was screaming down the hallway, "What are y'all waiting for?"
Oh wow.
And was taunting them.
Really?
Yeah. When I was looking at the body cam, I did see that. And that might be in that video that you're gonna show.
All right. Jesus. What'd you think about this guy so far?
Oh, I think he's honorable. He's a hero.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, let's go.
You know what the purpose of those officers was?
I think they were waiting on like I said, I remember mentioning a negotiator and at some point a tactical team of something.
And while you were there, did a tactical team arrive?
Eventually, Vortex showed up.
And what did you do when Vortex showed up?
It's a little bit of a blur, but I know I talked to them asking if they what. First, when they got there, I thought they were going to have some kind of equipment to breach the door, which they didn't. I remember asking about a sledgehammer. Eventually, that rifle-rated shield came up, and that did show up eventually. But just little things like that, I could hear them talking about breaking windows. It didn't happen.
And so with BORTAC, you expected there to be some equipment,
Yes.
and that equipment wasn't there.
No, just what they were wearing.
Okay. Well, and one thing specifically you said was a sledgehammer.
So anything to maybe break the door handle. That's what I was thinking at the time. And then the shield, maybe the shield, because I don't know how many whacks it's going to take. But just little things crossing my mind.
What do you mean by how many whacks it's going to take?
To break the doorknob. Or I don't even know at the time, I don't know which way the door opens, just to try and break the door down.
And how long did you wait there?
I know I ended up leaving to make a call. I was still trying to find out where Ava was, if she was okay.
And Ava, what grade was she in?
I think it was second grade.
And who did you call?
My ex-wife.
And did you get her?
Not that time. On the way to the school, I had made contact, but she didn't know anything where she was at. She might have been at the school at that time, or by the time I got there.
So you didn't know the condition or situation that your daughter may be in.
No.
And as you're standing in that line, what's going on in your mind?
I don't know if she's in there.
Mm. It's all right, man. Let it out.
And what was there any further delay?
Just the locked door situation.
And how did y'all resolve the locked door situation?
With the master key.
Once the master key arrived, what happened?
I'm not sure if it was used on the janitor door, but when we breached the classroom, they did use that master key. So they opened the door and we breached.
So they used the master key and you breached.
Yes.
Well, you weren't a school district police officer, is that correct?
No.
Were you a Uvalde police officer?
No, sir.
Uvalde County Sheriff's Office?
No.
You were from Zavala.
Yes, sir.
How is it that you ended up ahead of those people?
Nobody stopped me.
You heard that?
Yeah, I heard that. You hear that?
Breach.
So he's not
Nobody
even a
stopped
cop?
him. No,
He's
he
not
is
a
a cop.
cop? Oh, okay. I
He-
thought, okay.
Nah, he just what he's saying is like, I wanted to go in. It was time to go in, and he say, "Well, why did you do it?" He said, "Nobody stopped me."
Wow.
Which I'm glad. I think at this moment, I don't think he would have listened anyway. But I'm glad that no one tried to stop him because it
No,
already
he
had
wouldn't listen.
7 minutes too long.
Yep.
Why is it that you went in?
I was there. Nobody stopped me.
Wasn't it dangerous?
Yes.
But that didn't stop you?
No.
And why is that?
Because I was there.
And how many people made up the breach?
It was 4 or 5 that I remember, but the line could have been bigger because there was officers on both sides of the hall. But as far as I remember, it was 4 or 5 of us that were going in first.
And what agencies were they with?
It was me with BORTAC, and then I'm not sure if the PD was behind me. Across from me, there was a sheriff's office for Uvalde County, and then maybe some PD guys with him. It was Everybody was there.
But no school district police officer.
I don't know.
Okay. And so tell us how you breached.
After they unlocked the door, I think they got both classroom doors open. We make entry. It's dark, can't see anything. As soon as I make entry, I realize I don't have a flashlight, I can't even see. So I look to my right and there's a pile of the bodies.
Mm.
We didn't get shot.
Excuse me?
I was expecting to get shot.
He went in expecting to get shot. And in his mind, well, if he shoot me, the people that I'm with will be able to get him. Mm-mm.
That's a hero.
Most definitely. Superhero.
You didn't know where the shooter was?
No, I thought he was going to be to the right as soon as we made entry.
You thought he was going to be where the bodies were?
Yes.
So that's where you focused your attention.
Yes, but it was hard to see. It was dark. And then the door, you hear a door creak open in front, and then the shooting starts.
When you say a door creak open in front, what do you mean? Where was that door?
It was directly in front of us. Whoever was in front of me, whether it was a guy with a shield or a Bortec, I don't know if he was in the stacks a little. I was either 2 or 3, so I don't know if someone peeled right, but whoever was in front of me, the door was right in front of him. So the guy with the shield, more than likely.
Was it across the room?
It was straight in front of the door.
In front of the entrance door, there's another door across the room.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And so tell us what you heard and what you saw.
So the shots ring out
From where?
directly in front. I could hear the shots coming. I'm carrying my rifle left-handed, so I can't even pick it up because we're so close together. Eventually, I transition to the right, fire a couple rounds, and it jams. Something happens.
Like, can you imagine that? Not only is he walking in expecting to be shot, but he can't even pick his gun up.
Because there's
even
too many
be-
of them.
Yeah, and you know that friendly fire is real. But yeah. So he was handicapped even going in. It's crazy.
With it. I'm still not sure. It felt like a long time. I know the video's fast, but it felt like a long time. Eventually, shooting happens behind me, and then it's over. And in front of me, there's someone with long hair face down, and I think I thought it was a teacher at first because he had long hair. They flip him over, and I could tell it's the shooter. He's in all black. We still have a classroom to the left. So me and another officer peel that way. And I look down.
You say that way to the left.
Yeah, we turn to the left to go into the second classroom, and I look down, and there's a little boy, and his shin looks pretty big.
Mm.
He looks older than my daughter. So I think maybe she's not in here.
I remember this point, he still don't know who his daughter is.
And then in front of me, there's a girl with a pink dress. And I thought I saw her stomach move. Like she took a breath and held it. I'm not sure. And I asked the guy to my left, did you see her breathe? But at this time, it makes sense now. I'm not getting responses, but I have a gas mask on. I don't know if he answered me or not. But right after seeing hers, when all the chaos in there started, the desks being pushed everywhere, screaming, I got out of there at that point. Once they flooded the classroom, I left to look for my daughter. I didn't want to look in there, see her in there.
So you took care of the shooter, and then you went to look for your daughter.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I moved away from the mic. And where did you look for your daughter?
From where I parked to the east of that towards Highway 83, there was a little field there. Somewhere along the way, I got info that there was kids there, like a staging area. So I made it there, looked for Ava. She wasn't there. The superintendent, Dr. Harold, was there. There was a teacher there, a teacher aide, and I asked for Ava, and she said she's at the Civic Center. So I felt a little relieved, and I asked her, "You saw her get on the bus?" And she says, "No," and it makes me mad. I got mad that she told me that. So I asked Dr. Harold if I can get on the bus and go to the Civic Center, and he says yes. So we get on the bus. We're near Highway 83, and on the way they say there's kids at a car wash. So I tell the bus driver to stop there. I don't know if he was already going to stop, but I tell her stop at the bus at the car wash on 83. Before we get there, more radio transmission comes out that they ran across the street. And sure enough, they're not there. So I asked the bus driver to turn around, and she's taking too long. So I have her open the doors, and I get off on the highway, and I run to the house. And you see the kids there.
Hey, Melanated Queen, good to see
I
you.
ran to the house.
Thank you for
where the
coming
kids
through.
Ended up. I get off on the highway, and I run, get to the kids. Look through them, Ava's not there. They're in somebody's front yard. There's a lady at the door. I asked to use her phone. Same thing, no answer. So I don't know where Ava's at. The bus ends up getting there. We get on the bus, go to the Civic Center, get off, walk in there, and the kids are in rows, almost like a formation. And I don't see her at first. It feels everything leaves my body. And then out of nowhere, she like appears, and I hug her. We go towards the back wall. And then a teacher, but I don't know if it was a teacher, but she kicks me out of there because I have a rifle. So I leave my daughter with a relative there. He was looking for his kid. I asked him to give me a ride back to Rob because I fired my weapon. Pretty sure I had. So I knew I had to go figure out what they wanted to do with me. So I went back to the school. I met with a ranger, and he took my weapon later on that day.
Because it potentially had evidence of, since you
Man,
had fired shots.
Yes, sir.
He's definitely a hero. And that little girl's lucky to have him as a dad.
man, she is. She most definitely is. And I hate any of them lost their life. But I'm so glad the fact that he was so courageous. I'm so glad that she
He was, yeah. And
she wasn't
mind
one of
you, he went in
Huh?
there with shorts on. He went in
Yeah.
there with shorts and a tank top on.
Gym shoes.
Exactly.
No technical boots. Help me understand. Yeah, he was it was pretty good. Now, you ready for this, Doc?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, let's see how sadistic this kid was.
Hmm. Let's go.
Their own age. There's something even more sinister about a grown adult coming back to school just to assault young children. This has happened on a few occasions, most notably with Sandy Hook and the Nashville shooting. This crime isn't mentioned too much in the grand scheme of things, but as you'll come to see, it is definitely one of the worst there's ever been. Salvador Rolando Ramos was born on May 16, 2004 in Fargo, North Dakota. He was the second child to his mom, Adriana Martinez, and his dad, Salvador Ramos Sr. His parents weren't together for too long before they ended up splitting up. This led to his mom, a native of Uvalde, Texas, taking the two kids back home with her not too long after he was born. Uvalde isn't the biggest city out there. In fact, it only boasts a population of about 15,000 people. It's in the United States, but it's only about 50 miles from the Mexican border and has an almost 80% Hispanic population. Salvador's mom herself seemed to prefer speaking Spanish in general.
80% is crazy. But let's go.
And likely wanted to return to this sort of environment. Salvador's dad was barely around, only having spotty contact with his kids from that point onward. Salvador was fairly close with his extended family, though, especially his cousins and grandparents. Still, the family was in poverty, and that's putting it pretty lightly. Salvador himself would later say, "I used to literally sleep with a towel instead of a blanket. My dad was never here. He was either in jail or out of town." Salvador's dad was no stranger to the law. In 2000, a few years before his son was born, Salvador Sr. got into a scuffle with a police officer and then made a run for it. He was charged with resisting arrest, pleaded no contest, and got sentenced to 180 days in the county jail. He also had to apologize to the police in writing. Later on, he was also hit with the charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. This happened after he hit a man named Enrique Jesus Perez with a beer bottle. Given that he pled no contest and it was only a classic misdemeanor, he would only end up spending about 30 days in jail. He was ordered to have no more contact with the man and had to take part in periodic drug and alcohol testing for a while afterward. This does not mean that Salvador's mother was an angel, however. In fact, it was quite the contrary. Just before Salvador was born, his mom Adriana was charged with writing a bad check for about $20. At the time, she was dirt broke. She only earned about $500 a month from her job at a Chinese buffet, along with about $223 in welfare and $269 in food stamps. Back then, she was living in a small apartment with 6 other people. Her trial came around and she pled guilty to the charge about a year after her son was born. She had to pay a fine of $250, court cost of $218, and was sentenced to 180 days in jail. But since she pled guilty, she was given probation instead, along with 25 hours of community service. However, only 2 years later, she was hit with an assault charge after she beat up a family member. Once she agreed to enroll in anger management counseling, the charges were dismissed in 2007. She was also stuck with the court fees again, this time shelling out $1,900.
All this going on around a child. I think people just, it's a little too early. Let's go.
$128. Things were made even worse when Salvador's mom became more and more addicted to drugs. It has been said by many around town that she enjoyed taking part in a good bit of methamphetamine. Even Salvador's old grandma, Celia Sally Martinez Gonzalez, had been hit with charges that haven't been specified. Whatever they were, she was given 2 years of probation in order to pay a fine and court costs herself.
What do you think? What could she have done that it made her charges unspecified?
What do you mean? Maybe they didn't look into it. I mean, I'm sure that they're specified. They just didn't look into it.
That's a good answer. Let's go. I didn't think about that.
Because remember, she's a victim too, so you kind of don't want to. The
Yeah.
grandmother was his very first victim,
Yeah.
so you kind of don't want to badmouth her. But if her choices
No,
in
no,
life
no.
contributed to what?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm most
If it
definitely not bad mouth
contributed,
though.
yeah, I know, but if it contributed to the delinquency of this monster, then maybe she need to be bad mouthed.
Or I mean, it absolutely did. You got to remember, well, he actually stayed with her.
Yeah, he stayed with the grandmother, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mom and daddy was so messed up. Let's go.
She still is messed up, piece of shit.
There you go.
Long story short, the family was no stranger to crime. Despite everything he had going against him, Salvador seemed to be quite normal as a little kid. Once it was time for him to enroll in school, he began
Hey,
attending a
Shirley,
local
good to see you.
preschool in the area, the Dalton Early Childhood Center. There, his teacher described him by saying, "Salvador is a remarkable little boy. He is a motivated thinker and learner. He enjoys learning new things and is always excited to share his knowledge." However, eventually it was time for Salvador to move on to higher grades. He started going to Benson Elementary School. However, he would transfer out of Benson and then go on to attend the Anthem Elementary School in second grade. By third grade, things were starting to fall apart for him. He was behind his fellow students academically by a pretty noticeable margin. This was notably not due to a lack of effort, with his teachers even praising
Third
his
grade.
dedication to a
Crazy.
degree, but because he simply couldn't keep up. He was labeled as at risk after failing test after test until the pattern couldn't be ignored. At one point, someone in his family recommended speech therapy for him as well. After that, Salvador's family would take him out of Anthem and enroll him at a different school once again. He would come to attend the Robb Elementary School in the fourth grade. Here things went smoothly, for a very short while. At this school, it was said that Salvador was reluctant to interact with other kids due to his prominent speech impediment. Partially due to this and his own refusal to interact with the other kids, he became the target of bullying very quickly. He spent his fourth grade year in room 112 of the school and quickly came to associate that classroom with nothing but negativity. As the bullying became more frequent, he was made fun of for his speech, his very short hair, and for wearing the same clothes every single day. The latter of the two were mainly due to his poverty growing up, but it should be known that, according to the school itself, 86% of the children there were under the poverty line. It appears that Salvador simply had it worse off than the rest of them. As the year continued on, he had zero friends. At one point, Salvador faced something that he wouldn't forget for the rest of his life. One day, a girl tied both of his shoelaces together while he wasn't paying attention. When he stood up and started to walk forward, he fell flat on his face in front of the whole class and hurt himself. This led to a lot of laughing and ridicule. While it may seem trivial to an adult in hindsight, it was something that deeply embedded itself within Salvador's mind and never really left him. It didn't help matters that his teacher didn't really seem to help or intervene in any way. Salvador's family at one point reported that even the teachers at the school were picking on both him and his cousin. At home, things were even worse. Living in a trailer with his mom that his grandpa owned on the aptly named Hood Street, Salvador faced something that was much worse than his bullying at school. According to a girl that he would come to date and grow close with later down the line, Salvador admitted to her that he was sexually abused by a man.
Well, that begins his break.
Yes.
No,
And
no,
I think even before then.
yeah, but it sounded like he had like learning disabilities that just wasn't teachers didn't care enough to actually help him out with. And the fact that the teachers are they're saying that the teachers were ridiculing him and like that's crazy to me. I mean,
Mhm.
our job is to spot any child that's having any problems academically and to actually help them, not hinder them. So that's something that's out of the norm for me. I never heard of anything like that. But
Yeah. And even at that young in third grade, he was behind. Not because of how old he was and how his birthday fell, but the fact that he was so far behind the other kids academically. Like,
yeah, it sounded like he needed some intervention.
yes. That's why I tell people like when these kids acting out and stuff like, oh, that be all right. They act just like their dad, they act just like their mama. It's like get them the help they need. Like, please. Let's go.
I wonder if he was in ESL classes. Well, now but I'm just curious. Like, what type of classes was he in? Just curious.
Yeah, well, at some point he'll be in no class. He don't take his ass to school.
His mother was dating during his childhood. When he told his mother about it, she sided with her boyfriend and refused to believe him. So he was left with no choice but to put up with it, in his mind at least. He had reached out for help and had his hand slapped away. After that, Salvador's relationship with his mother would never recover. In fact, it only continued to get worse over the years. Eventually, Salvador was moved back to Benson Elementary School for the rest of his elementary years. After that, he moved on to middle school, attending Flores Middle School starting in the 6th grade. Again, keeping up with the trend, he was moved to Morales Middle School before 8th grade. Still, things didn't really improve for him. According to his later writings, he was still bullied throughout middle school as well. However, his bullying in middle school increased even more when Salvador, according to his own later writings, was caught masturbating in class. He said, I was getting bullied
What the
because I
hell?
started beating my dick in 7th grade, cried in
What
front of
the
the whole
hell?
class, yelled at by multiple people.
Yeah. And
Okay,
I'm glad.
that's
Go ahead.
repeat. Wait. You run that back.
Elementary school for the rest of his elementary years. After that, he moved on to middle school, attending Flores Middle School starting in the 6th grade. Again, keeping up with the trend, he was moved to Morales Middle School before 8th grade. Still, things didn't really improve for him. According to his later writings, he was still bullied throughout middle school as well. However, his bullying in middle school increased even more when Salvador, according to his own later writings, was caught masturbating in class. He said, I was getting bullied because I started beating my dick in 7th grade, cried in front of the whole class, yelled at by multiple people, slapped so hard I had a bruise on my cheek for a couple days. This is when he started to get into trouble himself, although it was
You got anything to say?
No, I'm gonna get at the guard.
Yeah. Smart move. Let's go.
fairly tame at the time. He was written up for various offenses now and then, like for repeatedly calling a teacher by his first name, calling other students gay, or drawing inappropriate pictures, but it wasn't anything too serious. Eventually, Salvador moved on to high school. This time, he would actually stick to one school throughout his tenure without transferring, the Uvalde High School. This high school is where Salvador would truly begin to spiral. He continued to get into trouble, this time for things a little worse than before. He would hit other kids, refuse to do his homework, and walk out of in-school suspension whenever he was put in there. Salvador's performance in high school was so bad that some of the school staff even recommended that he start taking some tutoring courses.
See,
When
there
his
you go.
grades fell even more, they recommended that he start attending special education classes. However, his family wasn't on board with either option, and it seems that he never went through with either of them. Salvador's grades were so abysmal in his first year in high school that he didn't pass the 9th grade and was forced to repeat it the next year. The next year, he didn't pass it either. When he was forced to repeat it once more, he still didn't pass it.
There you go.
By
3
the time
times.
Salvador was on his 4th year of high school, he was still in the
It was
9th
10th grade though.
This was clearly something that would embarrass him, as he would call himself by the grade that he should have been in at the time. While Salvador suffered from what he felt was the worst bullying in his life in the 4th grade, he felt personally that he didn't actually start to go downhill until middle school, and that things only got worse from then on out. He later wrote in the Notes app on his phone, "From 6th grade to sophomore year, I was bullied. Did you know I skipped a lot of 7th, 8th, and 9th and 10th grade? Because I was bullied. 10th grade, I probably went to school for like 2 weeks. 9th, I missed over 3 months of school. 8th, I missed so much school, and 7th, I barely. So I haven't even been to school that much at all. I used to cry almost every day when I went home how much my life sucked. I used to walk home and cry in 8th grade because I was getting bullied. There's so much times I walked home crying. And there's more stuff, but I don't want to get into it that it's bad. I have been bullied/harassed my whole school career. Slapped with Germex, tripped, punched, picked on, pushed down the stairs. I had to walk out of school so much times I would cry all the way home because people were so mean to me. I was getting bullied at a lunch table and I was crying so much I had to switch to a younger table. I was told constantly I was ugly as fuck. Even girls would bully me and I was scared to say anything to anyone. I asked the counselor to switch my classes and she was asking why and I didn't tell her because I was terrified of what would happen to me. And that was sophomore year. I was so depressed in 2020, crying myself to sleep almost every day because I felt so lonely. I wanted to get a job, but that would mean I couldn't see Steven, and he is my only friend, so I meant that I would be even more sadder. There is even a video recorded by Salvador's classmates in high school that shows him getting picked on at school, once again being taunted for wearing the same thing to class every day.
Being fake tan, fake van, I'm fake. That's how you always wear. You always wear the same clothes every day. You ain't got no new outfit every motherfucking day. You wear the same thing, so shut the fuck up. You got nothing to say. You ain't gonna say nothing. Say to my motherfucking face.
Oh God. However, this might have actually been in good fun. It's important to note that others have said the opposite, that Salvador was not bullied and he was usually the one picking fights himself. This could have been about high school specifically, not about elementary or middle school, but some have come forth on video saying so.
Salvador Ramos was a boy who was not bullied. He would try to pick on people but fail, and it would aggravate him. I would like to get that out of the way. He was not bullied. He, prior, and I don't see this covered, and I'm going to put this out there, he would hurt animals. He was not a good person. He would go to the parks and try to pick fights.
Salvador had been turning away most people who he considered to be friends, whether it was his attitude or just
Facts.
the weird way he acted in general. He was raising eyebrows all around.
I was gonna start being his friend no more because like he was being weird with like not only me but like a lot of other people.
He had scars on his face, and I remember somebody asking him like, "What happened? Are you okay?" Because he showed up to school with them, and he just straight out told them, you know, with a smile, I did it myself.
After being called ugly for most of his life, Salvador came to obsess over his looks. He went through so many physical changes that it later became somewhat of a meme online that he never looked like the same guy in any of his pictures. He admitted to having an eating disorder at the time from this obsession as well, suffering from both anorexia and bulimia. He wrote, "I was sickly skinny because I would never eat because my ED was so bad. I had to go to the hospital because I would barely eat. I was anorexic back in late 2020. I was sticking a finger in my mouth and throwing up all my food back in January." By this time, Salvador did have that one friend named Steven, who lived quite a ways away. This is likely why he felt that having a job would limit how often he could see him anymore, and he was already pretty limited on that. He also had a girlfriend named Regina, the only one that he ever had or ever would have. Still, none of this did anything
Had to be a Gina. Let's go.
to improve Salvador's mental state. That was still rapidly going down the drain. By his final year of high school in 2021, Salvador was spiraling more than ever before. His thoughts and writings grew more violent in nature. He began to show signs of cruelty towards animals, a desire to sexually abuse women and men, and an interest in mass violence. Feeling like he had very little to lose at this point, he began to fantasize about beating and violating his bullies. He wrote, "But damn, you called me a quiet kid and wonder why I'm so anti."
You remember the mama boyfriend allegedly touched him.
Yep.
Victims become victimizers. They don't get the proper help.
Social. Well, I told you I hate people, and I will never change. And I wish if someone tried to bully me, I would beat the living shit out of them and rape them till they fucking bleed. His fellow students started to notice as well. One student at his school named Crystal later told the media that he gave off a bad vibe, saying that he looked like he might shoot up the place. They mostly said it was a joke at the time, with her adding, "You heard people joke and say, he looks like a school shooter."
You hear that?
Yeah, I remember hearing that, them saying that about him, that he looked like a school shooter. Other students were saying that online, in the news, on the news, they were saying that he was that weird.
Yeah, and he actually used to threaten to say he was gonna do it.
But you ever notice, like, okay, I'm looking at his eyes. Like, whether we're talking about Uvalde's monster or Sandy Hook, or I don't know if you remember the movie theater. Why all their eyes look crazed? It looks like there's nothing to them.
Yeah.
It's just like it just looks empty, like a lost soul.
Yeah. I agree.
No, I was just curious. I just noticed that.
Before clarifying that it wasn't really only him that got this treatment, saying, "I've heard it said about other people." While Salvador didn't have any documented mental illness, it isn't hard to come to the conclusion that he was suffering from something. He himself had Googled the term sociopath on his phone and reached out about possible treatment, even getting an email back. He never did pursue the treatment any further than that, however. Instead, Salvador became completely addicted to this phone, especially Instagram. He would interact with well over 100 Instagram posts in one way or another each and every day, often staying on it until anywhere from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. before getting a bit of sleep. He had at least 20 known Instagram accounts that he used to get all this done. His girlfriend said he would stay up all night or sometimes he would sleep barely. His girlfriend notably lived a good distance away from him in San Antonio. Given that Salvador never really bothered learning how to drive and didn't have a license, seeing her often wasn't a possibility. Given that both his only friend and his girlfriend lived so far away, he still effectively felt like he had nobody in his life. Regina even said he didn't have any friends, he had no one. Salvador left home one day and came back, a little beat up, and told his family that he had been jumped by some kids he used to think were his friends. After that, he started trying to learn boxing and MMA off the internet. Given how he wanted to be internet famous, he decided to film his journey from time to time, taking videos of himself wrestling with a friend or punching a sandbag that he hung up in his room. Because of COVID lockdown, Salvador had been out of school for a while by 2020. By the time 2021 came around, it was time to go back to school full-time again as normal. However, his grades had gotten so bad, he was bombing every standardized test, and he had skipped so much school that the school staff found it kind of pointless. He had skipped over 100 days of in-person classes since 2018. At the end of October 2021, the staff at Uvalde High School withdrew him from his courses. Part of this was because the school was so lax in enforcing any rules when it came to truancy. If the rules were enforced at all, it was very seldom and inconsistent. It didn't appear that anyone from the school did much to reach out to his parents about this decision before it was made, if they did anything at all. Regardless, Salvador was now out of high school. He never graduated from the 9th grade in his 4 years there. Things grew even worse for him when his girlfriend...
You heard that?
It's horrible.
Yeah. Like,
It just felt like nobody cared.
nope, that was it. You took that statement right out of my mouth.
Nobody
It,
gave
it,
a shit.
it actually get worse, but let's go.
and decided to dump him. She said that it was due to his both creepy and obsessive nature, calling it out of the ordinary bad. Regina said that Salvador repeatedly told her that he wouldn't live past the age of 18, either saying that he would take matters into his own hands or that he simply wouldn't live a long life without elaborating. She said that he would often get angry at her and threaten her. It happened so often, in fact, that she couldn't even remember how many times it had actually happened. After the breakup, Salvador proceeded to harass both her and her friends over the internet for a good long while. Even when she got a new boyfriend, he still continued.
Regina, sell it. You know, if you saw me right now, you would fucking on your boyfriend. Regina, sell it. Regina, send me a voice message. I want to hear your voice. Hurry up. Stop playing games with me. Hurry the fuck up.
Salvador, you're scary. Like, legit. You are scary. You have a mental illness and you need to get therapy and something.
One of his mom's many ex-boyfriends described Salvador as being a loner who punched holes in the wall whenever his mom would make him mad. Over the year, he started dressing in exclusively all black, bought a pair of combat boots, and let his hair grow long and unkempt. With these two major humiliations in a row, Salvador started to overcorrect in the other direction. He began to make it appear online as if he were something really special. He would often write that he was going to be famous someday. He texted a friend and told him, "We're gonna be famous as fuck," with a bunch of chart-increasing emojis, implying some sort of personal or financial growth. He wrote messages to himself in his notes app as well, telling himself how great he was. One of them read as, "I'm an unknown genius, and I will impact society in a good way by September 2022. Still,
He's an
Salvador wasn't
unknown
actually
genius, but
doing
couldn't pass the
anything.
9th grade.
While he had previously wanted to fit in, he now showed no interest.
I think he was genius with the things he wanted to be a genius in.
But he couldn't pass
Cause
the 9th grade.
I think he had selective genius, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Cause to do the stuff that he done to actually get prepared for what he did to rob elementary, he most definitely wasn't a dummy. He just selected with it.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
What you call a manipulator?
Sociopath.
Yeah, that one too. Most definitely. Heavy on the psychopath.
He didn't even have much to do with his family. His sister had graduated and left home, he hated his mom, and he had no interest at all in her boyfriends. He didn't go to school, he didn't have a job, and he almost completely withdrew from society aside from his social media obsession. Sal continued to harass a lot of different girls online. He often made a lot of them extremely uncomfortable, usually making some sort of advance before immediately resorting to making rape threats or telling them they were going to die in one way or another. In one leaked conversation, he's seen saying hey to a random girl before telling her he would worship her. When she didn't respond immediately, he told her to jump off a bridge. As his fascination with Instagram grew, so did his interest in other social media platforms as well. He became very active on TikTok, YouTube, and for some reason a French live streaming app called Ubo. He tried to network with other people his age on Snapchat and started playing video games online as well. He was especially into Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, and Fortnite. Most of his online accounts were notably very edgy. Almost all of his usernames referenced a desire for revenge or the idea of conflict in one way or another. Some of his usernames and addresses were
Don't we have a biggest op in the
revenge@gmail.com,
spectrum?
revengevan@gmail.com, I'ma kill you sick.
Don't we have the biggest op in the? I could have sworn I've seen that name before. Sorry.
You go crazy, man.
Revenge, Sal Revenge, Salvador Fights, Disrupts, and The Biggest Op. People who play games with Salvador online would come to describe him as an asshole, saying that he would often fly into a rage whenever he lost. He would especially take his anger out on any female players in the lobby on either team, usually going to private messages just to harass them even afterwards. He was said to have terrorized them each for a good amount of time with graphic, descriptive threats of rape and violence against them. Salvador's interest in everything dark had been growing at the same time. Things to that effect were often on his mind. He took a big interest in watching gore videos online, anything from murder to gruesome accidents. As his desire to become something more than a single dropout grew, Salvador began to develop a bit of a god complex, and he showed it in a very childish way. He started to refer to other people online as humans, implying that he was something above that. He said he had difficulty connecting with other people as a result, saying that he lacked empathy. He really came to believe that he would be famous one day, most likely on either TikTok or YouTube. Even though both of his accounts barely got any views at all, each and every singular view would immediately go to his head. He would brag online that he was already getting famous and would call other people randoms, saying that they were lucky to even be interacting with him at all. In late 2021, Salvador decided to get a job in order to get some funds. He first started working at a Whataburger. Here he would face another humiliation when an ex-friend's grandma saw him there. She took a picture of him and sent it to her grandson, telling him that this is how he would end up if he ever quit school. This idea caught on, and some people began to reach out to Salvador just to make fun of him for working there. He didn't even keep that job for very long anyhow, as he didn't even last a month before he began to threaten to sexually assault a female coworker. Pretty quickly after, Salvador got another job at a Wendy's instead. This time he would actually hold the job, doing so by neglecting to interact with the other coworkers as much as he could, at least on the job itself. While his manager said that he rarely interacted with anyone on the job, his female coworkers reported that he would often send them inappropriate text messages after hours. According to his manager, he loved to try and pick fights with coworkers. If anyone criticized him, he would puff out his chest and scream, "Do you know who I am?" The truth was, they didn't. Nobody could figure out exactly why he thought so highly of himself.
Do you know
They
who I
began to
am?
make fun of him as a result, calling him School Shooter because of his long, messy hair and his black.
Oh boy, let's go.
Jackets. One of his co-workers at Wendy's later said that he was troubled and, in their words, not a good person. This person said he, quote, put himself in a box and would not talk to or associate with anyone he worked with. Outside of this job, Salvador also started to help out his grandfather with his business, repairing air conditioners. For this, he would often be paid in cash. Given that he still lived at home and had no expenses, Salvador only hoarded his money. His family felt that he was most likely saving for a car or hopefully to move out. He would later come to prove that this wasn't the case. He started to brag to his friends that he was, quote, saving for something big, telling them that they would see him on the news one day. Still 17 years old, he started to spend his money once he had a substantial amount saved up. While he couldn't get his hands on a gun, he could buy some random gun-related accessories and tactical clothing that wasn't actually harmful on its own. He ordered some rifle slings and shin guards online at first. Then he ordered himself a tactical vest. He also bought a red dot sight for a gun that he didn't have but knew he wanted to buy in the future. Frustrated and not wanting to wait, he began to ask several people he knew over the age of 18 if they would buy guns for him, including his sister. They all refused. Salvador had developed a fascination with school shooters. While he had put in a little effort to hide that fact at first, he quickly adopted it as a quirky trait of his. He started to use his own school shooter nickname, calling himself Yubo School Shooter while he would live stream. He would even pose in his tactical vest while holding his BB gun, trying to convince his viewers that it was a real gun. Even so, he was never banned despite being reported. Things took a much...
Why wasn't there intervention then?
Nobody cared enough.
Darker.
There was no intervention because nobody gave a shit. Nobody cared enough.
Turn for the worst when Salvador became enthralled with a documentary on Netflix, that being Don't Fuck with Cats, Hunting an Internet Killer, a documentary about Luca Magnotta. Luca had killed an international student, abused cats, and fled to another country. Like Salvador, Luca also had a desire to get famous, and he was willing to attain that goal by any means necessary. Given how he had killed multiple cats, the internet was rightfully outraged and did everything they could to identify him and track him down. Salvador didn't learn at all from that aspect of the story. One day in 2021, he posted a video online that showed him driving around with who he called someone he met on the internet, holding a clear plastic bag with a dead cat inside. He later threw the bag into the street and spit on it while his anonymous friend laughed. They then took a video wearing a tactical vest and firing BB guns at people. The next video they took together was of an ambulance responding to a car accident, an accident that he said his friend from the internet caused. It isn't clear if he had actually killed this cat or if he just found it that way and wanted people to think he had. If he had, it was yet another clear sign that he was a budding serial/mass killer. And according to some online, he probably did. Some who had seen Salvador streaming on Yubo said that he actually did livestream himself abusing and killing animals, at least one of which was a cat. They said he would also livestream a few attempts to kidnap girls in order to force himself upon them. On some live streams, he even boasted for the first time that he wanted to commit a school shooting one day. All of these instances were reported to Yubo, who promptly ignored each and every report. Other users would call him out as well.
I guess everyone his word deserves to get raped.
No, just you, buddy.
You deserve
Out of
something
everybody in the
else.
world, just you.
You deserve death row. You deserve to get curb stomped, my guy.
Given that he wasn't seeing a ban anywhere in sight, he continued down this road. He bragged that he would drive around with his friend and fire his BB gun at people from the car, sometimes egging other vehicles in the process. And he started to post pictures to Instagram of semi-automatic rifles that he wanted to buy one day, like the DDM-4B7. Still, despite all of his bragging about planning something big and calling himself a school shooter, it doesn't appear that Salvador had any real concrete plans laid out at the time. It appeared that they had started out as more of a fantasy, or maybe even a character that he started to lean more into as time went on. That would all come to a change when 2022 came around. This was when a pivotal moment would take place in Salvador's life, a fight with his mother that would be the straw that broke the camel's back in their relationship. In or around early March of 2022, he got into a fight with his mom after he turned off the Wi-Fi. Given that he decided to film the fight for an Instagram reel, it's possible that he started it for content. In the video, the argument grew more and more aggressive, with Salvador calling her a bitch repeatedly. While they had argued countless times in the past, this one became one of the worst. It was to the extent that the police were called, but no arrest was ever made, despite Salvador's mom saying that she was very afraid of him. Because of that, Salvador began looking for some way to move out. Over the year, he had gotten more support than usual from his extended family. His grandfather had been paying him for his help working, and his cousins had been slowly growing closer to him. Given how strung out his mother was, Salvador's grandma, who they called Sally, had gradually been becoming more of a mother figure to him and his sister over the years as well. So Salvador decided to reach out and ask if he could live with his grandma, only a few blocks away from his old elementary school, Robb Elementary. In that house, which was pretty small, he didn't have a room of his own. Instead, he slept on the living room floor. This setup wasn't really working for him. A day came when he confided in his older cousin, who was also staying there, that he didn't have much of a desire to live anymore. The two ended up having a good, long talk together. After, the cousin was pretty convinced that she had gotten through to him and that he had changed his mind. However, this same sort of thing would happen with an uncle afterward as well, who also thought that he seemingly pep-talked him back into staying alive. They had no idea how wrong they really were. By this point, Salvador was making some real plans to carry out some sort of shooting. While we will never know for sure, it's highly speculated that he decided to target Robb Elementary for one simple reason: the fact that he had supposedly faced some of his worst bullying in that 4th grade classroom. He started to buy some more accessories for a shooting in the lead up to his 18th birthday. He bought himself a large number of 30-round magazines, up to 60 of them according to some sources, a holographic sight, and a Hellfire Gen 2 snap-on trigger system, which is a trigger modification that allows for much faster semi-automatic fire. On March 23rd, someone noticed a suspicious person dressed in all black with a large backpack who was walking around the Robb Elementary campus. While that person has never been identified, it would be quite the coincidence if it wasn't Salvador. Salvador started spending time with a young cousin who was attending Robb Elementary at the time as well. The two would often play Roblox together. While it seemed like a nice gesture to those on the outside, Salvador's motives were anything but pure. He began to quiz his young cousin on many different things related to the school. He asked for specific details on how the class schedule works and how the lunch periods played out. One of Salvador's friends told him that month in a conversation on Instagram, "People at school talk shit about you and call you school shooter." Salvador apparently didn't care that much. On April 2nd, Salvador sent one of his friends on Instagram a message, asking, "Are you still going to remember me in 50 days? That friend jokingly responded, "Probably not," to which Salvador responded with, alright, we'll see in May." Salvador's relationship with his mother never improved again in the slightest. With his father, he felt less of a sense of hatred and more of a sense of apathy. Given how little his father had been in his life, Salvador Sr. felt his son had no love for him. When he saw him sometime in April, he noticed that Salvador had done some seemingly self-inflicted cuts to his face. He also heard his son say that he would be doing something soon, although he didn't elaborate on what it was. That May, Salvador started ramping up his plans to carry out a shooting. His birthday was fast approaching, taking place on the 16th. He continued to lean into the school shooter persona, creating another note on his iPhone that said, "Ask your school about me." Then, on May 10th, he took a screenshot of his bank account summary, showing that he had $5,127.78 in savings left. That night, he wrote another note, saying, "I'ma be all over the news in 12 days, meaning he was planning his shooting for the 22nd. 2 days later on the 12th, he went to a website where he could create and display his own countdown timer. He set it for the 16th, his birthday. He started to drop hints on social media as well, hints that were anything but subtle. 2 days later on the 14th, he sent a private message on Instagram that read, 10 more days, now implying that he was planning something big on the 24th. This friend responded to him, noting his ominous tone, saying, "Are you going to shoot up a school or something?" To that, Salvador responded with, "No, stop asking dumb questions. You'll see." Many other people who Salvador chatted with online corroborated this, saying that he had been making cryptic comments about dates for a while now, sometimes with him even saying that he would appear on the news soon. Salvador was overjoyed to watch the clock hit midnight on May 16th. He was now officially 18 years old, and nothing would be holding him back from buying a gun any longer. Exactly 18 minutes after
This kid was extremely lost.
turning 18, he logged onto a website and began the process to buy a
He's
DDM
not a kid
47
anymore,
rifle
though.
from Daniel Defense. Getting the confirmation email, he briefly opened up the calculator app to check his funds. Satisfied, he went through with the purchase. The total cost was $2,028.28. While it wasn't all of his savings, it would be a very large portion of it. The gun was all set to be shipped to a gun store in Uvalde called Oasis Outback, where he would be able to pick it up later.
18 years
This
old, you
gun
should
had
not
been
be
at
able
the
to
top
buy a
of his
rifle
wish
like
list
that.
for a long time, and he couldn't wait to finally get his hands on it. Afterwards, he made himself another countdown timer, this time for May 23rd, once again changing the date for when he wanted to carry out his attack. On May 17th, only one day after his birthday, he went out to the Oasis Outback store in person to purchase a different gun. Salvador got his uncle to drive him out to the gun shop, saying that he wanted to go to a restaurant next door to get something to eat. After his uncle dropped him off, he went inside. The gun he would buy would be a Smith & Wesson M&P 15, a rifle similar to the one he had bought previously. This one costed him $1,081.42. When he later regrouped with his uncle carrying a long box and no food, it was pretty clear that he had actually bought a gun. Given that he had no experience with guns, his uncle noted that he struggled to get a magazine into the rifle, causing it to come falling out onto the floor a few times. Salvador started to look up different gun ranges in the area to learn how to use it, but he wasn't able to find one that allowed the type of rifle that he was using, so he gave up. He then realized that he didn't even know what kind of ammunition his own gun took, so he Googled that as well. He then asked Google whether a magazine can be reused once it's emptied. He then looked up where to buy Juggernaut armor, the fictional armor from the Call of Duty series. He also began taking pictures of himself with his new guns.
Wow.
When his friends felt that he was just being edgy as usual and that the guns weren't real, he showed them the receipts. The literal
Yeah, it's
receipts.
bad.
As word got around, rumors began to spread quickly. Another friend reached out to Salvador to tell him that one of their acquaintances was going around telling everyone that he was planning on shooting up a school. He had likely hoped to hear Salvador confirm that this was not the case. Both Salvador's grandma Sally and his cousin told him that he couldn't have a gun in his house, so his uncle agreed to store it at his own. However, it wasn't long before Salvador took the gun from his uncle.
So they knew he had the guns. He told him not to have them at the house instead of taking them from him or calling the authorities. It was all bad.
Home and snuck it back to his grandma's house. He hid the gun somewhere outside for the time being, according to a text he sent one of his friends. On May 18th, Salvador also purchased a very large amount of ammunition for his rifles, anywhere from 1,657 to 1,740 rounds in total, depending on the source. This costed about $1,761.50. He now had $256.58 left in his savings. It isn't known who drove him out to the store on this outing. Salvador came to learn on May 14th, only days prior, a man named Peyton Gendron had carried out a mass shooting at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. On the 19th, he began searching for information related to that shooting, although information was fairly sparse at the time. Then, the next day on May 20th, Salvador was excited to see an email at around 11 a.m. stating that his gun had arrived at the store. He was finally ready to go pick up the DDM 4v7.
This is crazy, man. Like, no kind of structure. I missed almost the whole live. Got to do a replay. Had to turn in some homework. Yeah, get that homework done. Always replay. Let's go. Thank you for coming through now.
That he had first ordered. He was down at Oasis Outback within 7 minutes to pick up his gun, once again getting a ride from his uncle. This time he told his uncle that he was only getting some ammunition for the first gun, with it already having slipped that he owned that one at least. Upon receiving his gun, Salvador asked the store staff to install his holographic sight for him. Salvador admitted that he had never fired a gun in real life before, let alone attached a sight. Satisfied with the setup, he rushed home to show off his new weapon. He immediately started taking some pictures of the gun to send to some friends. Once his background check was finished, it showed that Salvador had qualified for the purchase. While buying a few guns of that nature in a short time requires the shop to report to the ATF, only the purchase of multiple handguns in a short period would have required them to report it to the local police. The owner of Oasis Outback said that Salvador seemed like an average guy, noting that he didn't have any apparent red flags or suspicious activity. All he noted was that he was alone and fairly quiet. He did remember questioning him as to how an 18-year-old could afford 2 expensive guns like he had bought. Salvador responded that he had simply saved up his money over time. Other customers within the gun store described Salvador very differently, however, noting that he seemed very nervous and appeared odd. They even specifically stated that he looked like a cliché version of a school shooter. One thing they all agreed on was that he gave off a bad vibe. With that, Salvador had the gun that he wanted so badly. He made his way back to his uncle's car, once again carrying a long box. This time, his uncle didn't inquire as to what it was. He simply felt that this was the ammunition and magazines he had mentioned previously. The next day on the 21st, Salvador displayed his self-proclaimed genius by Googling how many days till May 24th. It was 3 days away. He was so excited to use his gun that he couldn't even think straight. He posted a picture of his 2 rifles to his Instagram account. Salvador ended up getting a text from one of his friends, saying that he was going to be in Uvalde soon and that the two should hang out. Salvador, for reasons unknown to his friend, responded, "If it's before May 23rd, I'm down." Given that Salvador had nothing going on and that he didn't appear to be moving, this would have been odd. This friend said that he would probably be going in July or August. Salvador responded with, "Damn, that's too late," before sending him a message saying, "I'm about to get 2 ARs, wanna see?" When his friend agreed, Salvador responded with pictures of his guns before saying, "Just spent $1,652 on ammo. and $2,150 on some AR. The friend, noting his usual school shooter persona online, responded with, SMH, giving me school shooter vibes. To everyone who knew him, Salvador's true nature was as clear as day. However, none of them wanted to believe it. Salvador could no longer wait for what he was about to do. He was giddy at the idea of carrying out a shooting on his old elementary school. While many other shooters seemed to fall into more of a depression leading up to the day, even expressing doubts at what they were about to do, Salvador was very much the opposite. On Sunday evening, May 22nd, he once again pulled out his phone to Google how many hours till May 24th, 11 a.m. The next day, he was just as antsy as ever. It was now the day before his planned massacre. He messaged a younger German teenage girl he talked to online, saying, I got a little secret. When she asked him what it was, he said it was impossible for today, telling her that he was still waiting for something to be delivered by 7 p.m. Later that day at around 5 p.m., a shipment of hollow point bullets from OpticsPlanet.com arrived for him. That day, someone called a threat into the Uvalde school district. A young man had called and said, You know your school just got shot up, right? How did that feel? When the person on the other line tried to ask more questions, the man hung up. He then called again later from a different number. In the end, this wasn't even reported to the higher-ups for whatever reason. It hasn't been stated for certain that this was Salvador, but again, it would have been another big coincidence if it wasn't. When night came around, Salvador couldn't sleep. Right before midnight,
I think he was doing that to try to test them to see how they will react to a threat.
Googled, how long till 11 a.m. tomorrow? Salvador couldn't count up to 11 from midnight. In private messages to other friends, Salvador implied that the next day would be significant to him. Many have speculated that he had chosen the 24th as the day of his massacre for one simple reason. It was a local tradition that seniors would return to their elementary school to walk the halls at lunchtime. That would explain why he had chosen 11 a.m. on that specific day, and why he grilled his cousin on how the lunch periods worked. In his mind, the people who bullied him while he was in the 4th grade would be there that day. Salvador had actually spoken with a friend shortly before that this time in the 4th grade had affected him deeply, saying that he had very bad memories of it. Little did he know the date for that walk had been moved up. The seniors had walked on the 21st instead. At 11:13 p.m., Salvador texted one of his online friends saying, I have something outside in the back of the house, and I can't bring it inside till I make sure my grandma's asleep. I don't want her to see it. He later sent another message to that friend, this time saying, I'm going to bed. I already got the thing right next to me. Salvador then finally got some sleep, cuddling all night on the floor with his rifles, dreaming of the carnage he was about to carry out the very next day.
Trigger
On
warning.
the morning of May 24th,
Very disturbing.
2022, Salvador was sitting at home with his grandparents. At the time, he was sending out some text messages to the girl in Germany that he had been talking to for a while that he had originally met on Ubo. He tagged her in a picture of the guns and DM'd her, right? I'll text in an hour, but you have to respond. I got a little secret I want to tell you. He stopped by his room to make a short video for social media showing his clothes that day. Over the past couple of weeks, Salvador's grandmother Sally had been threatening to remove him from her mobile plan. While he was texting this girl, she called customer service to do just that. Salvador continued to message at least one person. He had a FaceTime call with the girl in Germany. Afterward, he ended the call and continued to send her messages over Facebook Messenger. Immediately after their call, Salvador's grandma came to him and had an argument with him about being a failure. She told him that she was on the call with AT&T to cut him off from the phone plan. Salvador texted the German girl, telling her, I'ma tell you right now, hold on, waiting for this bitch. I'ma do something to her right now. Oh my god, she's on the phone with AT&T about my phone. It's annoying. What? After that, Salvador decided to add one more death to his plans for the day. He left to go get one of his rifles and returned to the living room. He pulled it up to his 66-year-old grandma's head and shot her directly in the face. He then collected himself for a few moments before messaging the German girl once again. He told her, I just shot my grandma in her head. I'ma go shoot up an elementary school right now. This girl didn't believe that he was telling the truth. She responded with a sarcastic, cool. Little did she know, she had been receiving accurate live updates. Shortly before, an award ceremony was being held at Robb Elementary School. It was one of the last days of school before summer vacation, and many students were set to graduate soon. Some students chose to go home after the ceremony, but many others decided to stay behind and watch movies in their classrooms with their friends. Salvador took his grandma's keys and made his way outside. He threw all of his gear into her Ford F-150 before sliding into the driver's seat himself. He then turned the key and set off on the short journey to Robb Elementary. Little did he know, his grandma was still alive. Although she was severely injured, with the bullet tearing through the left side of her face, it hadn't gone through her brain at all. She managed to slowly begin stumbling from the home and
shot with a high-powered rifle in the head and still survived. Grandmama was still meant to be here.
in order to get help from the neighbors. Despite not having a driver's license, Salvador did his best to drive out to the school himself. He did not do well. Driving toward Robb Elementary on South Grove Street, he lost control of the truck completely and went crashing through a barricade and straight into a large ditch a short distance away from the school. At least one of the wheels on the truck was completely ruined, meaning that it was no longer going to be of any use. So he decided to set off on foot. With what had happened with his grandma, Salvador was late in his plans. When he crashed the truck, it was now 11:28. Salvador hopped out of the truck and into the ditch. He was wearing all black clothing with his tactical vest over that, carrying ammunition inside. He was carrying one of his rifles, the DDM-4V7, and 7 magazines of ammunition. He decided to leave the other gun in the crashed truck. 2 men at a funeral home across from the school noticed the crash and made their way outside to make sure the driver was okay. They got fairly close to the truck, standing above the ditch and looking down at him from the road. At that time, Salvador was getting his gear ready. He popped into view from inside the ditch and began to fire at the 2 of them. Luckily, neither of them were hit. They turned around and began to run back toward the funeral home. Immediately, someone inside called 911 and reported the shooting. In addition, the police started receiving a volley of calls related to the crashed pickup truck in the ditch as people drove by. A coach at Robb Elementary, Yvette Silva, was outside with some of her 3rd graders when she noticed a backpack come soaring over the fence and onto the grass inside the school grounds. It was then that she saw a young man dressed in black climbing over it. The next thing she saw was the barrel of his gun rising up to shoot her. She ran from that field and towards her classroom. She grabbed the school radio and shouted, "Coach Silva to office. Somebody just jumped over the fence and he's shooting." Coach Silva then ran out to the 3rd graders outside and ordered them into lockdown. While she expected to hear a lockdown notification, she heard no such thing for quite a while. While the principal
Another drop of the ball.
had tried to issue an announcement, she was having trouble with the Wi-Fi. Salvador was then seen making his way over to the 4th grade teacher's parking lot, firing his gun periodically. This was when a teacher outside of the school made the first 911 call, urging the local police to come out to the scene. This teacher then ran into the school through its west entrance and shut it behind her. This door would remain unlocked as, for whatever reason, it was only possible to lock from the outside with a key. Salvador began to fire toward the school from outside, shattering some classroom windows. A janitor was notified to start locking all of the doors of the school, but he grew scared from the gunfire partway through and hid in the cafeteria. At around the same time, a Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District, or UCISD, officer, Sergeant Coronado, first arrived on scene, having heard the last 911 call himself. There he saw 2 Uvalde police officers who had already arrived on scene. Sergeant Coronado asked them where the shooting was taking place. They said that they didn't know. Salvador, meanwhile, continued to fire. Given the sound of the gunshots were echoing outdoors, the police thought that they were actually being shot at.
See how excuse me. So how confused they can be. And just say he was the first one to reach the scene. I guess they were saying another set of police officers, because there was 2 Uvalde police officers already there, obviously. Let's go.
They then noticed a group of children in the playground running away from the school. That was when one of the officers saw Salvador making quick pace toward the school. He had a clean shot and raised his rifle, asking permission from Sergeant Coronado to shoot. Sergeant Coronado would never give him that permission. If he had given the permission to shoot this clearly armed gunman shooting at young children, they would have saved many lives that day.
I just don't get why he didn't
Unfortunately,
take the
Salvador
shot.
continued to the school uninterrupted. This would be the first of many, many mistakes that fateful day. Immediately after, a school resource officer came driving toward the school at a high speed. He saw a teacher outside, immediately mistaking him for the shooter. He drove right past Salvador, who was in clear sight, and began chasing the teacher down in his car instead. It was now 11:33, only a few short minutes had passed. This was when a 4th grade teacher in room 102 heard the gunshots, thinking it was the sound of metal hitting brick. In a way, it was. She looked outside and saw Salvador with his gun and bag, walking up the sidewalk to one of the entrances. She ordered her students to get down and hid behind a curtain herself. Salvador then made his way up to the west entrance, the same door that the teacher had just ran into previously. Given that the door was unlocked, he was able to enter the school completely unimpeded. As Salvador entered, he was seen on the school security camera raising his head and looking around with a maniacal grin. He shouted something along the way, which is thought to have been, "Little kids, time to wake up."
It's crazy. Tone the kids, man. Crazy. Lunatic. Psychopath. Like, serial.
Same time, he was blaring music from either a speaker or his phone all the way. He walked a short distance forward and turned to the right. He already had his target area in mind, the connected classrooms that made up 111 and 112, the same place where he had been bullied himself in the 4th grade. He wasted no time walking straight to that room without giving any attention at all to any other potential target. While walking, he taunted, "Ready or not, here I come." As he made his way toward that room, a child came down the hall and looked around the corner to see what was happening. That was when Salvador pulled up his rifle and aimed it toward the window on the door to room 112. The 2 teachers inside had received an email about an active shooter in the school. One of them, Irma Garcia, got up to look out the door to see what was happening. It was at that very moment that she saw Salvador. As she blocked the door with her body, he immediately began to fire through the door multiple times, hitting Irma in the side and at least one student. He fired off several shots, causing students inside to scream out in terror. As the shots rang out, the teacher in the connected room, Arnulfo Reyes, heard what was happening. He said, "All of a sudden, we hear the first shots. Boom, boom, boom." In the confusion, none of them knew what the sounds were. No announcement had been made for the school to go into lockdown, and unless you were lucky enough to have been one of the people to get an email and read it instantly, most people were unaware that a shooting was even taking place. As the sound of gunshots continued, students began to ask what was going on. Mr. Reyes thought it might be a drill until he saw sheetrock come flying through the wall and into his classroom as a bullet shot through. He told the students to get underneath a long table that was placed against a wall. He asked them all to hide underneath and pretend like they're sleeping. He didn't want them to see what might happen next. He began to make his way over to his own position that he had learned from previous drills in the school, an area of the room where he could hide while also seeing the doors and windows. Salvador then paused from his shooting momentarily before moving closer to the door, which was in a small inlet area in the hallway. He then put his arm through the door and unlocked it. He moved inside and began firing again, asking, "Are you all ready to die?" This time firing many more shots than before. One little girl in the room recalled seeing many of her friends fall to the ground as she herself collapsed due to the bullet fragments in her side, shoulder, back, and neck. Salvador backed out into the hallway once more. He then looked at the connected classroom, room 111. Much like before, he began to fire through the window on the door and into the classroom. The lock to room 111 had actually been broken for quite some time. The teacher had even sent numerous reports to the school asking for it to be fixed, all of which had gone ignored time and time again. Because of that, they were sitting ducks. When Salvador realized that he could open this door, he shoved the door open before stepping back into the hallway to fire another volley of bullets into the room. He then walked inside of the room and took aim at Mr. Reyes. Mr. Reyes said, "When I went around my kidney table to get to my spot, I got shot, and I fell to the floor. By then, he had already entered my room." Salvador, coming into the classroom, shouted, "Well, look what we have here," as he began to fire indiscriminately around the class. Aiming at each student one by one, he shot them multiple times each. Most of them either screamed for help or begged for him to stop, only for him to taunt them even more before firing a volley of shots at them, sometimes up to 10 per person. At some point during this wild firing, Salvador shot a bullet through the wall that would go on to hit another teacher, Miss Avila, in room 109 as well. After that, everything got quiet. Mr. Reyes couldn't hear any more sounds coming from any of his students. Salvador scooped up some blood from one of the students on his fingers. He made his way over and scrawled LOL on the classroom's whiteboard. He then sat behind the teacher's desk for a few moments. Shortly after, a girl in room 112 began to shout at police outside who had shouted, "Yell if y'all need help," saying, "We're in here." Salvador had thought that they were all dead. He stood up and went back to room 112 through the connected door in the classroom. Seeing Irma Garcia on the floor, he backed her further into the class. He shouted, "It's time to die, you guys are mine," as he entered inside. He then made eye contact with Garcia one more time. He shouted, "Good night," before firing multiple shots toward her and killing her for good. He then noticed a girl trying to call 911 on a phone, shooting her in the head on the spot. He said, "You're all gonna die," before once again unleashing a stream of gunfire into the remaining students and the living teacher. He stopped to load a new magazine into his gun. While he did so, someone in the room began begging for their life. As soon as he popped the magazine in, he started firing indiscriminately around the room once more. Mr. Reyes, hearing this from the other room, felt that they all must be dead now. Salvador then called out, asking if anyone needed help. When one little boy stood up, he pulled up his gun and shot him dead that instant. 2 minutes
That's
after
crazy.
the massacre in the classrooms began, 3 UPD officers with 2 rifles entered into the school from the same entrance that Salvador had used. Shortly after, the UCISD chief, Pete Arredondo, along with another UCISD officer and 2 UPD officers, came in through the south entrance. One officer remembered seeing smoke and
See, the 3 of them was up there. Really 2 of them. But then they just think he fired them and they...
fog, noting that both of the classrooms were dark. Another remembered the smell of gunpowder hanging in the air, saying that the halls looked cloudy. Chief Arredondo noticed shell casings all over the ground. All of them could still hear Salvador continuing to execute children inside.
That's crazy.
After feeling that he had killed every single person in room 112, Salvador made his way back into 111. At this point, he had fired well over 100 rounds into all of the students and teachers inside. At that same time, 2 of the little girls in room 112, 11-year-old Mia Cerrillo and Chloe Torres, grabbed a phone off of their dead teacher, Irma Garcia, and started to call 911. They begged for them to please send an officer into the classroom, telling them what was happening and saying that they were still in danger.
No, there's a school shooting. Okay, yes, ma'am. I have multiple units there. Are you with officers or are you barricaded somewhere? I'm in classroom.
He's very brave with them kids, too.
112. 112. 112, yes, ma'am.
What's your name, ma'am?
Chloe Torres, please hurry. There's a lot of dead bodies.
Hold on, please. You said you're in classroom 112?
Yes, ma'am. Please, seek help.
You're telling me they need to be quiet.
I am. I'm telling everybody to cover their mouth. Nobody's listening to me. I know how to handle these situations. My dad taught me when I was a little girl. Send help from my teacher.
I know his dad was very, very proud of his daughter when he heard about her courageous act on this telephone call. And good job, Pops.
That's all I put their shot.
Mia then laid on the ground, right on top of one of her dead friends, and smeared their blood all over her face. This was done in order so that she herself could play dead more convincingly. She then lied there and waited for help. And waited, and waited. Sergeant Coronado went with a few other officers and Chief Arredondo towards a 111 and 112. He didn't hear any more gunshots taking place as the whole building went quiet. As he approached, he could see clear bullet holes in the sheetrock. On his body cam footage, another officer could be heard saying it's an AR, showing that they certainly understood the kind of gun they were dealing with. Another officer, Officer Page, stopped near the room as well. Throughout this time, Mr. Reyes could hear the police out in the hallways, praying that they were about to make their way inside. Each and every time he heard them, they never came in. Eventually, he heard the police call into the classroom, asking Salvador to come out and talk, saying that they didn't want to hurt anyone. Ava Morales, the other teacher in room 112, called her husband, Ruben Ruiz, a Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District officer who was on scene, to tell him that she was inside the classroom and would die if she didn't get help. Ruben tried to push forward through the hallway, but he was detained by other officers who took his gun from him and dragged him off the scene. Ava would die from her wounds after. It was around this point that the officers got a report that another woman had been shot nearby. This call was about Salvador's grandmother, who had gotten help from her neighbors. One officer and some EMTs made their way out to the scene. While Sally could walk, she was obviously in very bad shape. They put her into a stretcher and loaded her into an ambulance. Salvador's own uncle came to call 911, knowing that it must be his nephew who was shooting.
He's my nephew, man. He's the shooter. I was wondering maybe he could listen to me because he does listen to me.
Do you know of any change in his behavior over the last couple of days?
No, nothing. He just said that he was mad and that his grandma Sally was just bugging him too much.
Soon after, one of his cousins called as well, fearing that he might try to come to her house and shoot her too.
The active shooter, he's my cousin, and I don't want him to come to my house.
As they approached the room, they tried to move as quietly as possible. From the north side, Lieutenant Martinez decided to peek into the inlet area between the rooms. As he did so, Salvador fired at him from inside the classroom. Some fragments of the wall grazed the top of his head, causing him to start bleeding. Another officer, Sergeant Canales, was similarly hit by material that scratched his ear. In the panic, none of the officers shot back towards Salvador. The officers then retreated from the classrooms and back down the hallway. It was here that another critical mistake would be made. Chief Arredondo, feeling that the shooter was cornered, decided not to classify the ongoing case as an active shooter case. Instead, he classified it as a barricaded subject
He messed
case.
it all up.
This was significant because it meant that they felt their shooter was contained, so instead of actually entering into the classrooms and trying to save some of the kids who were still alive, they were going to leave Salvador in there with them until they could successfully negotiate him out. For the time being, all they would focus on was evacuating the rest of the building little by little while they left the kids and the teachers to bleed out. Once the police began to cordon off the outside of the school, parents began begging the police to go in there and try to save their kids. On video, when being asked why the police weren't going in to rescue the children, one officer responded by screaming, "Because I'm having to deal with you." When the police refused to go in, some parents tried to enter into the building themselves. Officers started to shove the parents back and even tackled them to the ground. They told them that they would be tased if they tried to enter the building any further. Many videos were taken of these altercations and uploaded to the internet. At one point, the police pepper sprayed one parent trying to get into the building. Another mom was thrown into handcuffs when she tried to enter. When they released her from the cuffs, she was able to jump the fence, get to the school, and take her kids before the police found her. While you may think that their concern was to keep parents from entering into the school and being shot, their tyranny spread to other areas as well. Some children who evacuated were sitting in a bus parked alongside the street. One parent was full-on tased when they tried to get their kid from the bus to take them home. It was then, at 11:42, that the school finally announced a lockdown, saying that it was due to, quote, gunshots in the area, not even specifying a shooting at the school. They made this announcement on Facebook of all things. In the announcement, they even lied and said that the students and staff were safe inside the building. Then and only then, a substantial...
They were safe inside the building. Oh, they dropped them.
amount of students began to be evacuated. With Salvador now in the room with nothing to do, he set his sights on Mr. Reyes, who he suspected might still be alive. While waiting on the police, he decided to begin torturing him. First, he picked up a thermos of cold water and poured it all down his back. Mr. Reyes said that he was actually lucky that he was in as bad of shape as he was. Since he couldn't move and was barely even breathing, it meant he showed no reaction. He couldn't have reacted if he tried. Salvador told him, "You're going to die and no one's going to miss you. You're a big loser." Still convinced that Mr. Reyes was alive, Salvador then dipped his hand in a pool of his own blood and began to splash it into his face repeatedly. Getting no reaction, he splashed more and more of it. At that point, Mr. Reyes' cell phone, still on his desk, started ringing. Salvador walked back over to the desk and picked up the phone. He then took the still ringing phone and dropped it onto Mr. Reyes' back, almost as if giving it to him. He then picked up the phone and dropped it on him again about 4 more times. At that point, Mr. Reyes said that he wished he would have just shot the phone to stop all the noise. He said that this all went on for a painfully long period of time before the police outside began to call out to Salvador again.
Sir, this is Uvalde with the school district police. Can you please keep your firearm down? You don't want anyone else hurt, sir.
At that point, Mr. Reyes said that all Salvador did was clear his throat. Then, convinced that Mr. Reyes was alive after all, he shot him once more in the back. Even still, he didn't lose consciousness. While everything was a blur, he would be awake from then on out. Chief Arredondo called the UPD landline, telling them, "We have him in the room. He's got an AR-15. He's shot a lot. We don't have firepower right now. It's all pistols. I don't have a radio. I
What?
need you to bring a radio
definitely want
for
all
me
pistols
and
out
give
there.
my radio for me. I need to get one rifle. I'm trying to set him up. I need this building surrounded, with as many AR-15s as possible." He then requested a SWAT team to the school. Another UPD officer, calling a dispatcher, said, "We believe that he is barricaded in one of the offices. There's still a shooting." When he was asked if the door was locked or anything like that, he responded, "I am not sure, but we have a Halligan to break it." A Halligan is a crowbar-like tool that can be used to pry open a door. Salvador continued to linger around the classroom. From time to time, he would fire his gun again, likely at any students he suspected might still be alive.
Hey.
Mr. Reyes would not be the only one inside the classroom that Salvador would come to torture out of boredom while waiting for the police to come inside. He went around the rooms, finding any kids who appeared to be alive. He would spit on them, curse at them, and even stomp on their heads and limbs to the point of leaving impressions with his shoes. A United States Border Patrol tactical unit rushed out to the scene after getting a message from his wife who had been a teacher there. He was actually at a barber shop, getting a shotgun that his barber lent to him, and rushed out to the scene. He helped to evacuate some of the children. A U.S. Marshal on the scene was able to supply a ballistic shield. Other Border Patrol agents arrived as well, although they didn't bring the breaching tools. Little did they know, the lock to 111 was broken anyway, and Salvador couldn't have locked it if he tried. They didn't try to simply open the door. More shields were brought into the school. However, they would have been useless if they were put to use, as only one of them was graded for rifles. Most of the low-ranking officers on scene began to grow frustrated at the lack of action, whispering to each other that they needed to get inside the classroom as soon as possible.
Yeah, with kids.
Hey man, you want to let the kids out?
Salvador, through the door, yelled at the officers, "Don't make me come out first and make it complicated."
Don't make me come out first, don't make it
Salvador
complicated.
then yelled, "Hey, you little fucking bitch," at a student. The student cried for help.
Hold on, guys.
Salvador then taunted him with, "You're alive, but you're almost dead. You're gonna die, little boy." The police could clearly hear this from the hallway, as it is even audible in the footage. They still didn't intervene. Soon after, Salvador yelled to the cops, "If you don't come in, I'm gonna kill the bitch." He then continued to taunt the little kids inside. Because of what had happened to their grandmother, Salvador's cousin knew exactly who the school shooter was. As soon as she heard about it, she made her way out to the scene. She told the police who the shooter was and begged for them to kill him already. She revealed that her son, Salvador's young cousin who he questioned about the schedules, was inside the building.
He's being transported, but yes, she's being transported to San Antonio. I need you to please help us because this guy, he's got a rifle.
I just fucking take him out as my stupid ass nephew.
Okay.
Fucking kill him. Kill him.
Help us, help us.
He's doing it because his mom and I can't breathe. I don't like that.
At 12:10, the first group of U.S. Marshals arrived on the scene to assist, having come from 70 miles away. Soon after, a DPS special agent said, "If there's
there you
kids
go.
in there, we need
Short
to go
zone.
in there." Uncaring, another officer responded with, "Whoever is in charge will determine that." Anyone who suggested that they storm the room was quickly waved
Son.
off the scene. The UCISD chief, Pedro Arredondo, was the de facto man in charge on the scene, but he was doing very little to actually get to Salvador. It has been speculated that Arredondo may have assumed that all the children inside were already dead,
they
and instead
just
wanted
seen
to
them
focus
again.
on gathering more
Look at all of
equipment
them,
before
just standing
performing
out
a
there.
breach of the room. It wasn't long before the little girls in classroom 112 called 911 again. They informed them that they were still very much in danger.
They're inside of the building, okay? You need to stay quiet, okay?
They're inside the building. You just need to stay quiet.
The police still didn't enter into the room. Lieutenant Mariano Pargas, the UPD's acting chief, was told about the call to 911, saying that the room was full of victims and many were still alive.
Well, the victims, child called 911. The room is full of victims. Child 911. Child 911 call.
He then entered into the school and calmly told the other officers, a child just called that they have victims in there, before walking outside again.
A child just called that they have victims in there.
The girls then called again for a third time, once again begging for help and saying that a lot of people inside were dead.
I'm going the wrong
was
way,
more
man.
concerned with putting a sniper on the roof of the school, wasting valuable time by
Yeah, what they
instructing
gonna do?
officers on how to best do that. While he was doing so, the girls called 911 a fourth time, saying that they had found 8 to 9 students that were still alive and could be saved. Again, they were ignored. Lieutenant Mariano Pargas was once again informed of the call. He walked back into the building, mentioned it briefly, and then went back outside to call himself to hear the information.
Okay, in the call that you got in from the one of the students, what did they say?
Okay, Chloe's gonna be, it's gonna be Chloe. She's in room 112, Mariano 112. She's with the 9 students that are still alive, and then she's on the phone and she's killed.
So how many are still alive now?
8 to 9 are still alive. She's not too sure.
And how many more?
She's not too sure how many are actually DOA or possibly injured. We're trying to get information.
Okay, thanks.
After ending with that, okay, thanks, he walked back inside and informed some of the other officers about it. However, when he then talked to a Texas Ranger, he neglected to mention the living children in the room. He then left the school and didn't come back again for whatever reason.
Wow.
When Pete Arredondo heard of the calls from the students inside classroom 112, he didn't change the situation from a barricaded suspect case into an active shooting case. In fact, there is more evidence that he tried to hide that information. Some officers were seen on video being told that there were no children inside the classrooms at all.
Do we have anyone that's hit on this side? Any of the kids or anyone hit?
No, we don't know anything about that. No kids are.
Oh man.
Everything's closed. Like the kids are not in there. Can we check
What?
it out to be sure if anyone's?
Now, at 12:17, roughly 45 minutes after the massacre in the classrooms began, the school reported, once again over Facebook, that there was an active shooter on campus and that the authorities were on scene. After, Arredondo was heard outside, screaming to officers, "Tell them to fucking wait, no one comes in," likely referring to the concerned parents. Pete Arredondo would start to spend most of the rest of his time in the hallway trying to negotiate with Salvador inside the classroom. Each and every time he would get no response. Still, he kept calling out to him, over and over and over again, wasting at least 30 minutes on this tactic despite getting 0 results.
Mr. Ramos, can you hear us, Mr. Ramos? Please respond. Salvador, can you hear us, sir? Please don't hurt anyone. These are innocent children. Please put your firearm down. We don't want anybody else hurt. Señor Ramos, me escuche. Mr. Ramos, Mr. Ramos, Mr. Ramos, Mr. Ramos, Mr. Ramos, Mr. Ramos.
Minutes later at 12:21, Salvador fired 4 more shots inside one of the classrooms.
Just imagine. The door's open the whole time.
A couple of minutes later, Arredondo, either lying or very uninformed of the situation, said, "We've lost 2 kids. The walls are thin. If he starts shooting, we're going to lose more kids. I hate to say we have to put those to the side right now." He began to try and speak to Salvador through the door again, asking him to surrender, and again he got no response. He tried again a few minutes later, again to be ignored. Salvador shot several times again at children he believed were alive in 111. He then shouted to the police, "Hey, come and get him." A minute later, he yelled, "Hey, come inside, bitch," followed by something inaudible. It's highly likely that Salvador was planning to die from the police's gunfire, much like many other mass shooters plan. If he were to negotiate, he wouldn't get that from them. He preferred to sit and wait for them to barge into the room and go out in a blaze of gunfire. When that didn't happen, he began to grow frustrated, never responding to the negotiation but shouting taunts at them from time to time. Even he couldn't seem to understand why they weren't coming in to get the kids. Arredondo was growing annoyed as well. He knew that he had dug his grave with this one. He had wasted a lot of valuable time, saved no children, and still hadn't even gotten into the room. He began to tell other officers, "People are going to ask why we're taking so long. We're trying to preserve the rest of the life. There is a window over there, obviously. The door is probably going to be locked. That is the nature of this place. I'm going to get some more keys to test." Starting at 12:30, more officers entered into the south door and walked past Chief Arredondo and Sergeant Coronado, stacking up on the sides of 111 and 112 themselves, waiting to breach the rooms. After 5 more minutes, the Halligan tool that they wanted but didn't need finally arrived. The little girls in 112 called 911 once again, saying that Salvador had fired a shot again. They were told to stay on the line and be quiet. 6 minutes later, after waiting around, Arredondo said, "Just so you understand, we think there are some injuries in there. And so you know what we did, we cleared off the rest of the building so we wouldn't have any more, besides what's already in there, obviously." This was while the girls in 112 were begging for the dispatcher to send the police inside. They said that they could clearly hear them outside talking. Arredondo didn't seem to be so willing to enter. He told his officers, "If y'all are ready to do it, you do it, but you should distract him out that window." As the girls once again begged for the police to come inside, the DPS captain, Joel Betancourt, on police radio, gave a command for the breachers to wait, saying, "The team that's going to make the breach needs to stand by. The team that's going to breach needs to stand by." Another 15 minutes later, at 12:50, some of the Border Patrol officers got a janitor's key to enter into room 111. They then turned the key in the unlocked door, waiting to go inside. The Border Patrol had decided to finally make their way in regardless of what Arredondo wanted. Commander Guerrero had another agent give him cover with the one rifle-graded riot shield and entered into the room with his gun drawn. Those two, along with 2 others, entered into the classroom. That was when Salvador, who had been hiding in the closet, kicked open the door with his gun drawn and began to fire at the officers. The officers fired back, finally killing Salvador and ending the rampage. The police began to frantically enter into the room and started taking some students out, unsure of who was alive and who wasn't. The scene was so grisly that many of the police officers ran outside to vomit. If it tells you anything as to how bad the scene was, officers were heard on body cam footage warning the others to avoid stepping on skull fragments littered throughout the classrooms. Some students at the school have said in the years since that limbs were severed by the shots, as well as heads. Most of the police had never seen anything like that in their entire lives, especially when it came to such young victims. Nevertheless, there were still some inside that could be saved. Blood coated the hallways as they rushed to get them outside. The scene was chaos as police officers were ordered to shut up so that they could listen for students' voices, but they continued to shout over each other. Stretchers were wheeled into the rooms and students were loaded onto them. However, it was found that the majority of them were dead, including every single student in room 111. 19 students and 2 teachers were killed in the shooting. 2 of them were 9-year-olds, Jacqueline Jalen Cazares and Eliana Amia Garcia. The majority of them were 10-year-olds. Navia Alyssa Bravo.
The kids that live probably have no faith in law enforcement at all. It's crazy.
McKenna Lee Elrod, Jose Manuel Flores Jr., Uzziah Sergio Garcia, Amiri Joe Garza, Xavier James Lopez, Jace Carmelo Luevanos, Tess Marie Mata, Alethea Haven Ramirez, Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez, Maite Juliana Rodriguez, Alexandria Ania Rubio, Jayla Nicole Silguero, Eliana Cruz Torres, and Rogelio Fernandez Torres. 2 of them were 11-year-olds, Miranda Gail Mathis and Layla Marie Salazar. And finally, 2 teachers had lost their lives in room 112, 48-year-old Irma Linda Garcia and 44-year-old Eva Morales. 18 people were injured, including 14 kids, Mr. Reyes, Salvador's grandma Sally, and the 2 police officers that were grazed in the gunfire. However, several of the injured wouldn't live much longer, dying en route to the hospital. Had they been rescued earlier, there was a chance that they would have survived. They had lived for 70 minutes with no care, after all. That extra 70 minutes in intensive care very well could have saved them. The surviving kids from room 112 were put on a bus in order to regroup with their families. This included the 2 girls who had been calling the police, along with at least 1 other boy. In the end, 11 kids and 3 others were admitted into the hospital for emergency care. It was found that a further 2 had died during their arrival. Some of them, including Salvador's grandma, who was airlifted, were taken to the University Hospital in San Antonio. At 2 p.m., parents of the children at the school were notified that they could now come pick up their kids. Given that the bus services were canceled, parents from other schools were asked to do the same as well. It was announced that the school term for that year was officially over, with only a few days having remained anyway. Graduation ceremonies would be canceled as well. Shortly after, the Uvalde Memorial Hospital held an emergency blood drive. The South Texas Blood and Tissue Center told the public that they would urgently need donations after the shooting. They sent about 15 units of blood to Uvalde on a helicopter to use in the hospitals there. It wasn't long before 2,000 people had donated blood. In total, 315 rounds were found inside of the school. 140 of them were spent casings, while 173 others were live. 922 more rounds were found outside the building, most likely in the rest of Salvador's magazines that he left behind in the truck. Some of the rounds that Salvador fired weren't even found, with it being determined that he fired 164 times in total. The police had fired 35 rounds themselves in total, 8 in the hallway and 27 in the classroom where Salvador was killed. Many of the students who died in 111 and 112 were put into body bags and left in the hallway of the school. That is where they would remain for the night. The crime scene photo of the hallways of the elementary school filled with body bags in the dead of night has haunted those who have seen it. Some parents would have to wait until late at night and into the early hours of the morning for the final confirmation of their children's deaths. Immediately following the Robb Elementary School shooting, the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District Police Department and the Uvalde Police Department came to be criticized heavily for their response to the incident. As controversy broiled, Salvador Ramos's remains were going to be held by the Uvalde County Coroner for weeks. All of the local funeral homes refused to have any sort of service for him out of both disgust and respect for the victims. Eventually, he was cremated by Cast Ridge Mortuary in Crystal City. He was buried in a cemetery under a fake name, that being Lonnie, with no date of death in hopes of deterring vandalism. Salvador's mom came to speak to a Mexican TV station, saying that she had no explanation as to why her son did what he did. She stirred up controversy even further by strangely stating he had his reasons for doing what he did, telling viewers, please don't judge him. She added, I only want the innocent children who died to forgive me. She said that Salvador was not a monster, while admitting he could be a bit aggressive. Salvador's father condemned the attack that much more, taking a lot of the blame onto himself. He said, he should have just killed me, instead of doing something like that. A memorial had been created outside of the school for the victims in the attack. It was covered in balloons, candles, and crosses. One local man made 21 different crosses for each of the victims, inscribed with their own names, and set them up outside the school. A lot of people came from outside the city to contribute to the memorial and pay their respects. Many local businesses offered free headstones and funerals to the victims. Even different food trucks and restaurant owners sent food to those affected by the shooting as well. It was announced by the UCISD Superintendent Hal Harrell that Robb Elementary School would never be reopened. It was set to be demolished to avoid re-traumatizing anyone related to the shooting. A board meeting was held and it was decided that the students and staff would move to a new campus. Mia Cirillo, the little girl who called the police at least 5 times while covered in blood and pretending to be dead, was said to have been left extremely traumatized. She was left unable to sleep, with large patches of her hair falling out regularly. An online fundraiser was made to help pay for her therapy with a goal of $10,000. She ended up receiving almost 20 times that, with the fundraiser ending at $199,000. She was a little too afraid to talk on camera at first, but expressed that she wanted to share her story so that others can know the horror of what it's like to live through a school shooting and hopefully to prevent more. Keep in mind, she was only 11 years old.
Or things that you want different, what would it be?
To have security.
Do you feel safe at school? Why not?
Because I don't want it to happen again.
And you think it's going to happen again?
When Chief Lieutenant Mariano Pargas, who failed to mention the 911 calls from the classroom, was interviewed again after that information was known, he said that he couldn't remember the calls. He instead claimed, "The last thing we thought was that the shooter had actually shot the kids. We thought he had shot up in the air, broken the lights. We had no idea what was behind those doors." But in a leaked call with the Texas Rangers, he ended up letting it slip that he very well knew the kids were inside.
The room was extremely dark, and we didn't know where he was, or the kids were standing, they were by him, or not knowing what was behind the doors.
Joey Garcia, the husband of one of the teachers who died in 112, Irma Garcia, died only 2 days after the shooting from a heart attack while attending a memorial for the victims. His family later stated that the heart attack was due to the grief of losing his wife. Their 4 children were left without parents. The UCISD created a fund for those kids and other victims. Soon after, an anonymous donor paid $175,000 to go to the funerals. Catholic Extension, a nonprofit organization that tends to finance impoverished Catholics, announced that it was giving 30 full scholarships for the students wounded in the attacks to attend a different school in Uvalde. Soon after the massacre occurred, the FBI and the ATF began to assist the local police in their investigation. They quickly grabbed Salvador's guns and took them in for an analysis. Soon after, the Texas Rangers began to assist as well. The response by the police to the shooting was so abysmal that even the United States Department of Justice announced that they would be reviewing the law enforcement response at the request of the mayor of Uvalde himself, Don McLaughlin. In the beginning, misinformation about the massacre and contradicting accounts between the different agencies who assisted in the response were making the investigation very difficult. Some of them claimed that Salvador used a handgun, others correctly stated that it was a rifle. Some claimed that his body armor made it even more dangerous, when it came to be known that he had no body armor at all. Some claimed that an officer exchanged gunfire with him outside the school, but then it came to be known that an officer had asked for permission to fire but no gunfight took place. It was said that this was a school resource officer, but then it came to be clear that the school resource officer had driven off to pursue a teacher. It was an absolute mess. At first, the Texas Department of Safety, or DPS Director Steve McCraw, said that the police engaged immediately. He said, "They contained the gunman in the classroom and put the tactical stack together in a very orderly way and breached." However, he soon changed his story to add that they were forced to delay the response because they needed specialty equipment, armor, snipers, and negotiators. The DPS even blamed a teacher for letting Salvador in, saying that she had propped open the door. This was not true, as the reason he got in was due to the fact that the door could only be locked from the outside. While the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, originally praised the police for their response, it was before he knew all the details. When he came to learn the facts, he quickly changed his tune and began to call for an investigation into the lack of initiative displayed by the police. He said, "Bottom line would be, why did they not choose the strategy that would have been the best to get in there and to eliminate the killer and to rescue the children?" The governor announced that he had been misled and given inaccurate information, saying that he was absolutely livid about it. The mayor of Uvalde was especially frustrated at the governor's initial praise. 2 days after the massacre, at a press conference, a DPS official was asked whether the police had made a critical error. He said that they didn't have enough information to answer definitively just yet. However, that same day, another DPS officer defended the police, saying, "If they proceeded any further, not knowing where the suspect was at, they could have been shot, they could have been killed, and the gunman would have had an opportunity to kill other people inside that school." The Uvalde PD police chief, Daniel Rodriguez, similarly defended his officers that same day, saying, "It is important for our community to know that our officers responded within minutes." The former police chief of Austin and Houston, Art Acevedo, disagreed, tweeting, "We don't have all the particulars right now, but when the gunfire is ringing out with the police are trained, expected, and required to engage. This is a moral and ethical obligation." However, it was only a day later that the DPS began to see how things really went down. They acknowledged that several bad actors had made errors that, without a doubt, led to more bloodshed. The director of the DPS, Stephen C. McCraw, said, "With the benefit of hindsight where I'm sitting now, of course it was not the right decision. It was the wrong decision, period." On June 1st, ABC News, citing many different sources, reported that the Uvalde police and the UCISD police had stopped cooperating with the investigation into their conduct. This was because the DPS had now publicly made the claim that the police had made an error by delaying entry into the classroom. They said that the UCISD chief, Pedro Pete Arredondo, quote, provided an initial interview but has not responded to a request for a follow-up interview with the Texas Rangers that was made 2 days ago. That same day, Arredondo denied the accusations and told CNN that he was in contact with the DPS every single day. However, he said that he refused to say any more because he didn't want to talk about the case while the funerals were still ongoing. He ended by saying, "Whenever this is done and the families quit grieving, then we'll do that, obviously." Many took this as callous in and of itself, given that he assumed the families would only grieve briefly and then return to their normal lives after the funerals. Anulfo Reyes, the teacher in room 111, had lost every single one of his students in the shooting. He himself had been shot in the arm, back, and lung. From his hospital bed, he criticized the police, calling them cowards. He said, "They sit there and did nothing for our community. They took a long time to go in. After everything, I get more angry because you cops have a bulletproof vest. I have nothing." He continued, "Nothing gets you ready for this. We trained our kids to sit under the table, but we set them up like ducks. You can give us all the training you want, but gun laws have to change. I will go anywhere to the end of the world to not let my students die in vain. I will go to the end of the world to make sure things get changed." According to the DPS, before the Border Patrol arrived on scene, the 19 officers who were coming in and out of the school made, in their own words, no effort to get inside the classroom where Salvador was hiding. They said that this was because of the false statements that Arredondo made that Salvador was isolated alone in a classroom where he could do no harm, i.e. the barricaded suspect response. Angeli Gomez, the mom who was handcuffed by the police and later jumped the fence to rescue her kids, was interviewed by the media. She said that she was still on probation for charges she had received a decade before and that the police used this in order to threaten her into not telling her story. They told her that, if she did, they would press obstruction of justice charges that would violate her probation and send her to jail. Soon after, her car was stopped in a traffic stop, where a police officer accused her of harboring illegal immigrants in her car. After, she noticed a cop parked at her house for about 45 minutes, flashing its lights to let her know that it was present. However, her story came to be doubted by some when the Uvalde Leader News published an article saying that she was never handcuffed. Many believe that this, however, was a story pushed by the police to the publication in order to ruin her reputation even further. She hasn't responded to the article herself. Further controversy came about when the story of Ruben Ruiz hit the public, the man who had wanted to enter into the school to save one of the teachers, his wife, and was taken out of the building by the other officers. He was so disgusted himself that he resigned from his position in the police department. When the Uvalde Police Department's acting chief, Lieutenant Mariano Pargas, was interviewed after the shooting, he never mentioned knowing that any of the students were inside the classrooms despite getting the calls themselves. Still, he actually took credit for wanting to enter into the classroom, saying that they removed Ruben Ruiz because, quote, "We were just afraid that he was going to try to run in the classroom and try to do what I wanted to do if I could have done it." It came to be known that Chief Pete Arredondo had been elected to the Uvalde City Council only a few weeks before the shooting took place. The mayor, Dan McLaughlin, said that a special meeting where he would have been sworn in would no longer take place, saying that they were going to focus more on the families that lost loved ones instead. However, he lamented that, in his words, "Nothing in the city charter, election code, or Texas Constitution that prohibits Arredondo from taking the oath of office," saying that there wasn't an official investigation taking place into him. He was later sworn in secret without a ceremony, becoming a full-fledged city council member. A Texas state senator, Roland Gutierrez, said that he had heard from the Commission on State Emergency Communications that Arredondo had no knowledge that any of the kids in the classrooms had called 911. This was, of course, a lie. However, he didn't take a hard stance, admitting that he didn't know for sure at the time. He had even heard that Arredondo didn't have a radio on his person at all, which does seem to be true. However, other officers had been there relaying information from the dispatchers. It wasn't long before the New York Times was able to find definitive proof that the police officers on scene were well aware of the children trapped inside the classrooms. On June 2nd, a private meeting was held at the Uvalde City Hall where many of the higher-ups from around town were present. The meeting was arranged by the governor's office, and it was said to be in relation to rising tensions between Uvalde officials. During this meeting, the most clear signs of these cover-up were displayed. A one-page document, very transparently titled The Narrative, was given to McCraw, the director of the DPS, by the city attorney Paul Tarski. This was, just as it sounds, the narrative surrounding the police response that those involved had written themselves. This was the narrative that they wanted to be given to the media. The city officials then began to pressure Steve McCraw and the DPS to start using their story. It was clear that the document was very favorable toward the police, highlighting, in their words, the quick arrival of officers at the school and their success in containing the gunman. Some excerpts were, within 5 minutes of receiving a report of an accident at approximately 11:30 a.m. on May 24th, patrol officers Mendoza and Salcedo and their patrol sergeant, Daniel Coronado, were on scene taking fire. They immediately pursued the suspect as he ran to rob school. This was the first lie, as they didn't take fire outside of the school. They also didn't run into the school immediately after Salvador did. Another excerpt stated, Officers Pete Arredondo, Donald Page, Daniel Coronado, and Adrian Gonzalez followed the sound of gunfire and entered the west end of Rob's school, while officers J.V. Martinez and Eddie Canales entered into the east end of Rob's school, also following the sound of gunfire. There was zero hesitation on any of these officers' part. They moved directly towards the gunfire. The total number of persons saved by the heroes that are local law enforcement and the other assisting agencies is over 500 per UCISD. These were more lies, as the officers weren't able to tell where the gunfire was coming from, thus couldn't move right towards it. All of them also hesitated, grouping up in the hallway for quite a long time before even approaching the classrooms. Next, they immediately approached the door and were fired upon by the suspect with an AR rifle approximately 4 times, with Eddie Canales taking shrapnel to his ear and Javi Martinez being grazed by a bullet to the head. With both officers bleeding, they took cover a few yards down the hall to avoid fire and called for backup. Time was not wasted, but each minute was used to save the lives of children and teachers. Again, their approach to the door was far from immediate. Martinez was also stated to have been injured by material from the wall, not a bullet to the head. Then we have U.S. Marshals arrived with shields. No one else, not UPD, not UCISD, not Border Patrol, not DPS, not Homeland Security, and not any other agency had shields available. Bortak insisted that all the rooms be cleared, i.e. all the children and teachers be removed, prior to use of the shields in breach of room 112. There wasn't any evidence that Border Patrol insisted that all of the rooms be cleared before they made their breach. They also had the shields, many of which weren't even graded for a rifle, on scene long before the breach was made. And then, absent the shields, every UPD officer was of the opinion that breaching the door was suicide, and every Texas Ranger or DPS agent who took their statements agreed. Not a single officer present, including DPS troopers and Texas Rangers, believed that they could save lives by approaching that door and being killed one by one. In reality, several officers had expressed interest in breaching the room as quickly as possible, with one of them being dragged out of the building for insisting on doing so. There is also no evidence that they believed they couldn't save any lives. Stephen McCraw of the DPS was highly critical of the narrative document. He refused to endorse the document as it was presented to him, saying he disagreed with their summary of the events. District Attorney Bushby also objected, arguing that she was concerned about releasing such inaccurate and incomplete information. On June 3rd, the board of the UCISD held a meeting to determine whether they would be taking any action against Pete Arredondo. They decided, not so surprisingly, not to take any disciplinary action against him. On June the 7th, Arredondo didn't attend the city council meeting. When the mayor was asked why that was, he said that he couldn't answer that question. It was on June 9th that Arredondo started to give his first interviews with the media and comment on the case. He said that the only reason he waited that long was to avoid blaming others or worsen the community's grief. Pedro Pete Arredondo said that he arrived at the school and thought that he was the first officer there. He said that he abandoned his police radio somewhere because he thought it would slow him down, saying that he wanted his hands free to fight the gunman. When this was scrutinized, he said that the radio's antenna would bump into him while he ran and might fall off of his belt. He further said that he knew that the radios didn't usually work well in school buildings anyway. He further lied, saying that he was completely unaware of the 911 calls being made from the classrooms because he didn't have his radio, despite being in the same hallway as the other officers talking about it. He said that he didn't know that he was the incident commander, thinking he was a frontline responder. This again would be a lie because, according to the National Incident Management System, the first person on scene is the incident commander. If he really did think that he was the first officer on scene, as he said, he would have known that that role would have gone to him. The DPS also described him as such, never implying that it was unclear to anyone else at the time. Arredondo said that he tried to open the door to classroom 111 while another UPD officer tried to open the door to 112, but both were locked.
No, you did.
This was either an outright lie or they didn't try hard enough to open it.
Exactly.
He then said that the door to 111 had a steel jam that prevented it from being opened. This was also later determined to be false.
Wow.
Arredondo then said that he didn't know that Salvador was firing from inside the classroom or that some other officers had been grazed. He would have had to be blind and deaf for this to be true. He was in the hallway himself for almost the entire time, and all of the other officers continued to talk about being shot at throughout the entire incident. He said that he was provided at least 30 keys to the rooms, none of which worked. He said that he didn't get a master key until a while later, when another officer called him on his cell phone to tell him so. This further damaged his credibility as, while he didn't have his radio, he did have his phone and was able to answer it when needed. Then he denied he was a coward and spit a line almost straight from the narrative document. He said, "The objective was to save as many lives as we could, and the extraction of the students from the classrooms by all that were involved saved over 400 of our Uvalde students and teachers before we gained access to the shooter and eliminated the threat." The same day that Arredondo gave that interview, a committee began to investigate the shooting on behalf of the Texas House of Representatives. They explained that the investigation would be done in private in order to preserve accuracy and be as thorough as possible before coming to a conclusion. It took several weeks before it was revealed that the police didn't even try to open the door to the classroom for 77 minutes before the Border Patrol made their way in. This was because a law enforcement source close to the investigation leaked that information to the media after seeing the surveillance video from inside the school himself. The media at first wondered if this was because they assumed the door was locked, but the leaker expressed that many officers were aware it likely wasn't. Still, he said that Pete Arredondo had tried various different keys out, but not on the doors to 111 or 112. Instead, he tried them on other doors while trying to determine which was a master key. The DPS director came to testify during the Texas Senate committee meeting on the Uvalde school shooting that the police response was an, quote, abject failure and antithetical to everything we have learned over the past 2 decades, saying that, objectively, the police could have easily stopped the shooting within 3 minutes. He pointed the finger at Pete Arredondo, saying that he was the on-scene commander at the time. He said, "The only thing stopping a hallway of dedicated officers from entering room 111 and 112 was the on-scene commander who decided to place the lives of officers before the lives of children."
Man, insane. What a story, man. What a story. What a story. Uvalde school shooting, Robb Elementary in Texas. Sad case. Love on your kids, man. Like, I know some that you can't predict. But if you got your kids come home telling you that a kid is acting weird or saying weird things or saying things about this, because this thing is becoming common. So most definitely want to shout out Shiv, come up here doing some of the content with me. It was greatly appreciated. It was a touchy one, so it's good when you do the touchy one. It's good to have, you know what I'm saying, someone you can bounce things off of, or they can bounce things off you and it kind of help level it out. So greatly appreciate you for that. You catch us on a replay. You know, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. True Reaction channel. And we also go over a lot of true crime. Right now, Adrian Gonzalez is actually on trial right now. He's the first one that's actually going to trial. I don't think he's going to be the last. So if you're scrolling through, you know, YouTube and you see him on Court TV or whatever channel it is, peep it out and see how it's going. I'm definitely gonna keep following up on it. And once again, I want to appreciate everybody that did come through. Everybody hit the like button. Greatly appreciate it. Remember, I'm your favorite content conversationalist. I am Old Boy, and we are coming from Old Boy's Corner. Love everybody. Have a good night. Get some rest. Power up. We'll be here for Sunday Gospel Power Hour. And we'll probably do some content later tomorrow night. So with that being said, we'll get out of here. And once again, as always, it's been a pleasure. Share, like, subscribe to the channel. Please and thank you. I thank you in advance. Old Boy from Old Boy's Corner. Represent South Carolina to the fullest.